Hi, welcome to the Smoke Up. My name is Maliki Juarez, and this is a podcast where we talk about things. Bradley and I, B. Deli and I. Uh, uh, Today for the show, we have moon debate. We're going to put a timer on it so we don't go too long. We are going to talk a little bit about the art. We're going to talk a little bit about bank robbery, and we're going to talk about my last video and aliens. And
it's the smoke up, where we toke up, time to roll up, shit, hold up, it's the smoke up.
about the turtles, since the Cold War happened, there were a bunch of people checking each other. Not only were there scientists checking each other like scientists usually do, but you also had the Cold War thing where if the US lied about it, Russia would figure out and call them on it.
Where we toke up, time to roll up, shit, hold
up. More AI stuff. Bradley, do you want to say anything to start off the show? See, doing an intro is a lot harder than
yeah.
We'll
Kind
get
of
better at it.
stumbling a little bit there, but it's all good because we're all a little bad at this right now. So, actually, I wanted to do this first, real quick. Get this out of the way. I have an announcement to make.
Okay, Bradley has that's a good beginning thing.
Yeah.
Episode. Bradley's announcement.
So, a couple months back, I sent my song "Succubus" to Fago lovers.
Right? Oh yeah.
They have this YouTube show called Juggalo Juice, where they play they showcase like art that juggalos submit to the show.
Yeah.
And they finally got back to me and they said they're going to play my song this Wednesday on the show.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you turn me up a little bit to match you? Just a tiny bit for me. Hello. That's a lot better. Okay.
But yeah, so
did they give you a date?
No, this Wednesday, 10:30-ish p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So
oh fuck yeah.
Tune in.
That's really exciting. It's do they have VODs? Do they save the VODs? Was it a live stream show? I
believe so. I personally haven't really watched the show, but
you just saw that you could submit stuff and you were like,
yeah, so yeah. I submitted, yeah, and so I'm definitely gonna tune in. I'll start watching it just to see like what kind of other shit they have on there.
No, that's pretty good. We could, because if they actually like have a list that they get back to people on, we could start submitting stuff. Yeah, like cats too.
Exactly. I'm gonna start submitting more. If it takes a couple of months to get back, fuck it, whatever. Yeah, I honestly thought they heard it and just like turned it down, but no, they got back to me and they said they're gonna play it. So
no, that's super cool.
Yeah, for me, that's a big deal because ain't nobody listening to my shit right now.
Well,
so
that's first like live broadcast of a song.
Yeah,
it's funny because I had that years ago, my first live broadcast, and it was by pure coincidence because I actually worked with a guy who he ran a conservative radio station that he would not disclose the name of to me because he I guess he has a lot of people that didn't like him. I can only imagine the crazy shit this dude said on his radio program, but he listened to my instrumentals and he actually played one on his show, like on his radio show, and it plays to the East Coast, I believe. So a bunch of East Coasters listened to my one of my instrumentals, my like really deep violin one.
I remember it was a Kid Justice. Yeah. See, I remember that one. Yeah.
And it fucking aired. How cool. So we, as of Wednesday, we'll both have songs that played for a live audience at one point in time.
So I can officially say that's happened. Like people have heard my music on a fucking radio show.
Yeah. No, that's really cool.
Yeah. Fidgeting.
I was fidgeting all fucking afternoon in frustration with a certain documentary that Bradley told me was the nail in the coffin for the moon hoax. Now, what's the name of this documentary, Bradley?
Now, correction, I didn't say this documentary was the nail in the coffin. You're misrepresenting my point a little bit there.
Pretty sure the phrase you said was, there's a scene that is the nail in the coffin to you personally.
If I remember correctly, I said this documentary with the follow-up documentary to me was the nail in the coffin. Specifically, Buzz Aldrin's reaction to the footage shown in these documentaries.
Okay, well, let's talk about Buzz Aldrin first. Because I did, not only did I look up I watched the video this afternoon, and I watched a twice as long debunking of the video this afternoon also. But last night I also did a little bit of research. And the Buzz Aldrin thing does not seem compelling to me. When you learn that the guy that did it is really like into ambushing Buzz Aldrin, and the time that he gets punched is the third time he's ambushed Buzz Aldrin. And the pretense that he told Buzz Aldrin to show up under was that he was going to film a Japanese children's show about space. So Buzz Aldrin shows up to a building prepared to fucking film a children's television show, and is accosted by a man poking him with a fucking Bible, asking him to swear on it. That's what witnesses said, is that he was being poked with that Bible. I would punch someone in the face under those same circumstances, whether or not. I don't think Buzz would have been listening to what he was saying, you know?
Okay, well, whatever you saw was, that was either the second or third time that you're referring to where he confronted Buzz Aldrin.
Well, I read an article about the event, and the article talks about how the director himself, the director of the films, says that is the third time he's interacted with Buzz Aldrin.
Okay, yeah. So what I'm talking about is the first time he interacts with him. Now, we can talk about this guy all you want. I'm not a fan of his, okay? I don't give a fuck about the dude. He's like a...
I hope not, because he's a fucking liar.
Well... well, if you mean like lying to Buzz Aldrin to get an interview with him.
No. I mean like later stuff we're going to talk about when we talk about the other thing. But let's talk about him doing this Buzz Aldrin thing.
But what I was just saying right there is like...
And I'm officially putting on the timer, so we have an hour to discuss this.
To me, it doesn't matter who the source is. You have to look at the information. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a Nazi telling you something. It doesn't mean that it's not true. You don't just ignore the information because of who's saying it. Now, that does play a factor into like how much you should trust it. I agree with that for sure. But...
And the lenses through which they're portraying it, and, you know, like... A Nazi isn't going to be honest, and you should know that they're not going to be honest when talking about certain subjects.
Certain subjects.
A Nazi is never going to be honest about the Jews, period. That's not going to happen, because they have a vested ideological interest in making the Jews seem worse than they are.
But if a Nazi tells you something completely unrelated, you don't dismiss that information because of who's telling you it.
No.
That wouldn't be very logical, now would it? So... I just wanted to point that out because you could say this guy is a fucking piece of shit or whatever. I don't care. I don't know much about him as a person. I know I don't agree with certain things he said and done. And I've seen some information that he's presented that I think is pretty legitimate. So that out of the way.
Okay, well, let's talk about the thing you find the most legitimate. What do you find the most legitimate about what this guy said? What is his strongest piece of evidence for the moon landing? Specifically, he seems to be stuck up on Apollo 11, but he also says explicitly in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon that every single Apollo mission was faked.
Well, if you watch the full documentary, Astronauts Gone Wild, we won't, obviously. But there was a portion I wanted to show you. The whole portion is about 8 minutes long, but it's the part with Buzz Aldrin. That's the whole section. It's the first interview with Buzz Aldrin.
And you know the timestamps?
Yeah, it's
okay.
So immediately.
Let's watch it.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and watch this. Now, I'll go ahead and preface this before.
Careful about shaking the table.
Yeah. But I wrote down a couple notes, a couple things to pay attention to when you watch this. Things that I think are kind of important. Because if you, like, I've watched a lot of true crime shit. I've watched a lot of To Catch a Predator. You know, I've watched a lot of stuff like this. If you compare this to any other criminal who's been caught with actual evidence against them, like, he's acting
you're claiming
like a typical
body
guilty
language
person.
forensics. Those have been debunked.
No, not at all.
Body language forensics. You can be anxious and show off body language that implies that you're lying just by being anxious.
Yeah, I didn't say this was proof of anything. I just said these are some things that I thought was, and it's not just body language, but these are some notes that I thought was important to consider. So, first of all, he's very, like, about the interview, he's like very, like, weird as soon as footage is brought up. As soon as the dude mentions footage.
Also, he's very let's put this in the context. He's very weird when he is confronted by a man who he has probably heard about with things claiming that he's a hoaxer. That's
well, I believe this was
objective,
this
right?
was before there would have been anything known about him, because this was basically like,
okay, so what's the setting that he's being in, that this is happening in? Is this a press conference? Is this
this is a private interview?
Okay, so and he's interviewing him presumably under false pretense. I'm just double checking. Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What's his lie this time?
I mean, doesn't specify in the
he doesn't
interview
like to do that.
Well, in the interview, Buzz Aldrin, he's obviously annoyed, and he feels like he's been deceived about.
Well, which he has.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be objective about this. If we do think that he is dishonest in some way, he has also been deceived in this situation.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, I'm not. I didn't say he wasn't.
Yeah.
And but like I was saying before, if this is slimy journalism, that's one thing, but that doesn't discount the information. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
but
I think before you say your thing, I just want to say I think a big part about this kind of journalism, in quotation marks, is that it's purposely meant to sensationalize moments where I think, I don't know this completely to be true, but I think that maybe if he hadn't focused on a guy who did not want to fucking talk to him and maybe focused on a different astronaut who might have been more willing.
He interviews every astronaut.
Well, yeah,
every Apollo astronaut in this documentary,
and that's what I'm saying. If he was talking to them under the right pretenses and not jumping on them with a whole bunch of bullshit, instead, like lying to them initially, then I'm sure these people, like at least some of them, would have been more receptive. And I don't think that the goal of this is to show the truth, but to show what he wants to show. But you can say your thing.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that. If the truth is that the moon landing was faked and that's what he's trying to show,
well, then you can't show that the moon landing was fake through a conversation with someone.
I mean, you can if there's somebody who was involved with that and you're showing.
No, you can get, at most, you can get an allegation from this one person. But yeah.
I feel like this Buzz, once you watch this Buzz Aldrin interview, like it kind of contradicts everything you're saying, because it's in the interview itself. Like the debunking is in the interview. But okay, let me go through these notes though. So yeah, so at first, as soon as the mention of footage is put out there, he's like, to me, it almost seems like he knows where this is going. Once he's shown this footage, immediately his first reaction, it's not to say that it's fake. It's not to say, oh, well, this is what we were actually doing. We're doing some like practice thing or whatever. He starts immediately deflecting blame. You're talking to the wrong guy. Talk to the administrator at NASA. We're just passengers. We're guys going on a flight. That's almost an exact quote. He deflects blame on it. He's like, oh, you.
But what does that say? That they're passengers and guys going on a flight? I mean,
well,
it doesn't say we didn't go to the moon. In fact, that explicitly says we did go to the moon.
No, but he's deflecting the blame. He's saying, well, don't talk to me about whether or not I went to the moon. I'm just a passenger.
So let's watch this, because I think I know what clip this is, and I do want to get through this part real quick.
Well, okay, just let me get through these notes.
Okay.
So he starts deflecting blame. One thing to look out for is he doesn't like once the footage is playing and they're like talking about it and he's being confronted, he doesn't want to look at the screen. You see him like look away. He's like turning away. He gets fidgety. He starts like folding a towel or something, like something weird. Like, I don't know. His body language to me, I'm somebody with anxiety, so I understand that that's anxiety. But I think it's worth noting because, I mean, that's also...
I mean, it's interesting if that's the one piece of information you have, but there's a lot more context to all of these situations, and this guy cuts them out. But, yeah. I'm sorry I'm rebutting every single one of your notes, but I want to make sure that...
Well, I'm trying to get through the notes, and then you're like trying to like say, well, let's just watch the footage. So let me get through the notes. Eventually, he does claim the footage is fake. This, to me, is very important. Because if you watch that footage and you think that's something that this documentary guy, Bart Sibrel, he like made this with CGI or something, that's insane. But, so he eventually does claim it's fake. He says it like, he just kind of like glosses over it, but he does mention that this footage isn't real. And like I said, if you compare this footage to anything on like To Catch a Predator or anything like that, this isn't about nervousness. What I'm saying here is like, he acts like a criminal who's been caught in a lie. Not just the nervousness, but just the things he says and does.
That's such a deep inference, but okay.
But and that's obviously, this is my take on it. I'm not a fucking my observations aren't objective reality, obviously. But I don't remember how do we do this
just
again?
click on it.
Just click on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's like a little intro. So it's 2 minutes in.
Yeah, so try to cut past as much as you can. Because this guy's directing style drives me crazy. I want to move on to the the booby. And so to reiterate, this is a clip of the director, Mr. Sibrel, showing Buzz Aldrin a clip of him allegedly faking something, and then Buzz Aldrin allegedly admitting that the footage is fake.
No, I didn't say he admits it. I said his reaction to me is an obvious tell that, like, to me, it's obvious that he's lying.
So,
and at some point,
admit that it's fake.
At some point, he says things that almost comes off like an admission. Like, if you were to show this footage in court, I feel like there would be a very heavy case there. Like if this were a murder trial.
I find that hard to believe.
I don't. Like, you know, I gotta say though, I think the funniest thing about last week's episode was when you said you hope this podcast attracts conspiracy theorists because you want to argue with them, which immediately sparks an argument with me about conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, but I think if it isn't obvious from how I talk to you that I don't consider you a conspiracy theorist.
See, I don't know why though, because I feel like if we weren't friends, I would be that person that...
Well, because I think there's still a part of you that's rational. I just think you've been inundated with a lot of propaganda from fucking mostly right-wing weirdo kooks. Yeah, close the app. I tried to close it.
I don't even listen to right-wing people like that.
But this Brian Sibrel guy, he's a right-wing religious kook.
Listen to him.
I know you don't listen to him, but you're using him as a source, which is it's indicative of your consumption. And that's all I'm saying with that. And I think if I were to show you enough of the right information, I can lead you to a better understanding of these subjects.
Well, let's make it a ongoing series. You wanted to argue with conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's my quest to de-radicalize every conspiracy theorist around me, including my best friend. That's the secret plot of the podcast. No, but I don't even think you're radical. I was
going to say, I'm not going to accept that though, because I'm not.
I don't think you're radical, but I've seen enough shit to know that like this stuff is the gateway to some radical fucking beliefs. Even like some of the stuff I really enjoyed when I was a conspiracy theorist is its gateway to like fucking dark like shit, like Nazi shit. Not just Nazi shit too, but just like religious fundamentalism and like a whole bunch of stuff that is meant to oppress people, and it's meant to sort of destroy your understanding of reality.
But that doesn't mean that conspiracy theories as a whole are always wrong.
No, like I explained 2 episodes ago, or was this the last episode? I
this
think
would have been the last episode.
I don't think that a conspiracy theorist is someone who just believes in a couple conspiracy theories. I think a conspiracy theorist is someone who is of the mindset that process systems is. You should pull it up on your phone while I talk about this. A conspiracy theorist is someone who is of the mindset that illegitimate sources are more legitimate because they're like not necessarily illegitimate, but lesser known sources are keys to like secret knowledges, and they're very and I didn't explain this last time. I'm already kind of stoned, so I'm flying off a little bit, but they basically, I believe that they like I used to, they have a propensity to believing the underdog no matter the situation. And in the real world, a lot of the times the underdog isn't the good guy, as opposed to like in a fantasy conspiracy world where the underdog is it's like a populist belief that can be both right wing or left wing. That's why there were left wing conspiracy theorists like for a big part of time, and there still are today, but they're not. A lot of like the left doesn't accept them as leftists because they believe in like a lot of those conspiracies just lead you to right wing ideas.
See, but
which like, are like beliefs that are not necessarily just even right wing but fascist, like thinking of like a glorious time that like is like actually mystical and non-existent, and that's a big part of like conspiracy ethos, like is that there's like there's a glorious thing awaiting if people were to sort of like embrace tradition in a way, and it's I don't know, I think it's very strange.
Kind of lost me a little bit there.
Well, in the sense that like a lot of conspiracies imply some sort of idea of social degradation, and like what's a good one that would do this exactly? There's a lot of conspiracies have gone explicitly right wing now, and I'm trying to think of things, but like there are conspiracies that crime is caused by government agents going out and causing crime. This is something that is both a left-wing and right-wing belief, and it's not like explicit like either way, but it has been used on the right lately to like say like certain events are completely staged, and like it's a very not you're not acknowledging reality when you're like I don't want to. Do you have the video?
Yeah, but
I started getting really off.
But I wanted to say something though about.
Yeah, I need you to rein me in.
But about the whole point of conspiracies being so right wing nowadays.
Yeah.
To me, that seems to be by design, and I guarantee you can find posts that I made on Facebook back in like 2015, 2016 predicting this. I remember saying, like, here in like 5 years or so, they're gonna make conspiracy theorists the same as Nazis and terrorists. I remember saying that they were gonna mix those together. But that's exactly what happened.
That's still, it's ignoring a lot of truths, and that a lot of conspiracy has always been right wing.
But a lot of conspiracy has always been left wing, and the conspiracy community as a whole seemed more left-wing than right-wing when we got into it.
I would say it has always been mixed, and we just didn't know what beliefs were right-wing and left-wing when we initially got into it. Alex Jones is an explicit far-right extremist.
We didn't listen to Alex Jones.
I know, but he'll claim he's above the left-right paradigm, and he spawned a lot of conspiracies that we believed in, even if we didn't listen to Alex Jones, sort of like this Sabel guy. And the fact of the matter is that he intentionally portrays things in a way to push a right-wing narrative to embrace like right-wing politics. And not only that, to pull the Overton window, which is like the sphere of acceptable talking points, over to the right, to where you can mention things like, protesters deserve to be driven over, you know, whereas like a couple of years ago, like that probably like maybe, I don't know, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, that would have not been as common to talk about in the media. That's like a big thing in the media now. It's like people will openly say, yeah, you should be allowed to run over protesters to get to work, shit like that, you know?
That's insane.
Yeah.
I don't know what that has to do with conspiracy theories.
I was making a point before that.
I guess that lost me.
Yeah, I got lost too.
I don't remember where the connection was there, but
I'm rambling a little bit. But that's I made a lot better points about conspiracy theorists last time I talked about it, so I'm going to refer to the audience to the last episode. And when the timer goes off, I'm going to put it on another 15 minutes, so we'll have a whole hour of our debate, as opposed to this weird fucking rant. I got too high. And the whole point was I wanted to do the debate before I got too high.
And we got high before we even got to the second thing on our list.
Well, we cut out a few things in the middle there. We cut out a few things in the middle.
Yeah.
But yeah.
10.
We got the video up. Let's watch this part of the video so we can move on to the main thing. And then.
Okay. Yeah. So I have it up here. I have it, I have the intro skipped. Let's see if it'll load on my phone. Hello.
Oh yeah, my point was that people like Alex Jones were calling like left-wing protesters terrorists before anybody else, and he helped pull the Overton window to the right to where these subjects are more acceptable to talk about. That's what I was getting at. Thank God. Now I don't feel as embarrassed.
You don't get to cut that out though.
No, I'll keep it. I'll keep me floundering in there
because that was hilarious.
It's a debate where both of us might not look too great at points, so I'm going to keep it all in there.
All right,
because people are going to see us grow, and that's the point. That's why.
Yeah,
it's a weed podcast. The whole point is growing.
Yeah. Well, and if we make this an ongoing series, who knows? Maybe we'll see a lot of growth one way or the other, or maybe we'll see both of our perspectives shift in a way, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll both become enlightened centrists.
Yeah, we'll both meet in the middle.
Third party every election.
Yeah, we'll start voting Green Party.
Green Party. Yeah, we'll vote Green Party. We'll vote Cornel West. Like it'll be fucking Biden versus DeSantis with a 20-point lead on DeSantis, and we'll fucking go straight for Cornel.
Yep.
We'll be like yeah, fucking Colorado will be purple on the verge, and we'll throw that vote straight in the trash for enlightened centrism.
Yeah.
And that'll be the end of our arc.
Yeah.
And we'll throw ourselves over a bridge.
Literally?
Well, I hope we do none of that.
All right.
We can place it right here in a little stand.
All right.
It's a little slippery.
Did you have Neil Armstrong interviewed already?
No, he doesn't want to be interviewed.
Well, I know.
Why does he not give interviews?
Well, because that's his personal choice. And I guess it's mine, in a way, to do things when they've been researched and worked out as far as a business arrangement. This is not news. This is not an anniversary.
Well, actually, it is. We found a very unique reel of footage.
So I'm going to pause this just to talk for a second, just so we don't get copyright struck. 242.
I don't know
He
if we can
seems
get
really-
copyright struck. This is a free documentary on YouTube, so
Okay.
we
Cool.
should be fine.
I'm just going to say real quick. He looks really old. He is very old. I'm just going to say that.
Well, I mean, this is
like,
not a new documentary.
And it's from the mission. And to our
Well,
knowledge,
it's
no one has ever
2004.
seen
I
it.
know about it.
And it's 30 years
Buzz
old.
the Aldrin's
You
like
want
fucking
me to see
90.
this while you have me on camera?
Well, and to tell us what it is. I mean, it's
Well, I don't know why I should do that.
it's a very unique.
Well,
footage.
it may be that I need to see it, and then we sit down and we talk about what you're taking a picture of. I don't see where there's an advantage in it for me to do what you're asking me to do. I see all sorts of pitfalls. I see people who have managed to talk to somebody. Who did you talk to in our office?
I talked with Heather at Tor Books.
Yeah, but is this helping book promotion? Are you going to be putting anything out during the time that I'm marketing books? So Heather does not represent me for the things you're talking about. She represents a book selling activity.
I think when you see the footage, you'll see that it's
Wow.
very extraordinary, one of a kind,
Okay.
behind the scenes type
Yeah.
of footage.
Yeah. Well, if it is, why do you have access to something that no one else has seen before?
Serendipity, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay, to comment on that, the story behind that is he contacted NASA asking for a bunch of footage on the moon landings because he said he was working on a documentary for it.
This is the thing he says in On the Way to the Moon. Funny thing happened on the way to the moon.
So
You can continue.
the story is that he asked for a bunch of footage, didn't specify what the documentary would be. They sent him a bunch of footage. In that mix was this video. He suspects it was a whistleblower at NASA who sent him the footage because it doesn't, you can't imagine why that would be an accident. How the fuck would that happen?
Yeah.
So that's the story behind that.
And yeah, let's just go on.
It was recorded on the 18th
Of what?
of July, 1969. Do you remember this?
On the 18th?
Yeah. It's so funny. He fucking just makes shit up.
What was made up of it?
Well, I know something you don't know. And that's why I want to move on to the video, because I knew about this, but I do want you to be able to show your piece.
Now, this is exactly what it looks like in any of the actual footage on the way to the moon.
Yeah, this is real footage.
Is it? This is real footage on the way to the moon.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, it's part of the window. But I'll talk about it once we go over the video, because I want to talk about the Van Allen belts too before I talk about it.
that's another thing they go over in this documentary a lot too. Is the astronauts cannot get their story straight on that. You're saying this is real footage from them halfway to the moon?
Yeah.
So what's this?
So
What's
I do
this
want
like?
to talk. I want to talk about it in a little bit because it's part of the bigger video. So right now, I want to describe the video so the podcast listeners aren't just like, what the fuck is happening? What are they arguing over? Okay, so right now, Cybel, Libel,
Sabrel.
Librel, Sabrel. Okay. He is talking to a very a very old and befuddled Buzz Aldrin, and Buzz Aldrin is like, hey, why should I watch this video? Is it going to help me promote books? Why did you talk to my assistant? She let you in here even though you're not like here to like help me with my book sales, so why should I talk to you? And then he's like, well, I have like a really cool backstage footage, secret footage that NASA accidentally sent me, and here it is. I want you to explain it. And then, so now they're showing a video of a 3/4 Earth. Like it appears to be, what is that? Waxing or waning? Waxing is when it's getting bigger, and waning is when it's getting smaller.
I can never remember which is which.
It looks like a waxing Earth. Very, very pretty. And the footage seems to be zoomed very far into it, and then it shows a zoomed out part, and it's also showing a shadow hitting the side of the planet.
And there's a weird looking light in the corner.
Yeah, and there's a light in the corner.
Okay, how do you read me now? Right, you're fine by now.
And everything's really dimmed down, but I'll explain that a little bit.
And then a bunch of weird shit blocking right there. Completely covers it. And there's like a cord right there. I don't know how you're saying this is actually footage on the halfway to the moon.
That cord is in the footage he shows in the original video.
Look, and then
Oh,
lights come up.
Yeah.
They're not halfway to the moon. That's just a round window. They put a little cardboard cutout there to make it look like the Terminator light. It wasn't a waxing Earth.
Let's go back to that. Okay.
You said that was a waxing Earth in space. That was a round window. That was just blue sky through a round window.
So the window is square. It's a rounded square. But the light, so this is you have to understand how cameras work. Okay, so we showed it. We showed that. We'll talk about that in a second, because I want to talk about it all at once, because it won't make sense if I keep jumping back and forth. And Buzz Aldrin's upset.
In satisfying your suppositions when there's all this evidence that we did.
This proves, as you see, that you were using a window to demonstrate that you were halfway to the moon when you were
Turn the camera on, please.
Okay.
Turn the camera on.
Well, I'll go back a little bit so I can see the body language that we're talking about.
I know for a fact that you did. I know for a fact that you did not.
You know for a fact that we did not.
That's correct. If you'll see this tape proves that.
Okay, well, I'm not interested in satisfying your suppositions when there's all this evidence that we did.
This proves, as you see, that you were using a window to demonstrate that you were halfway to the moon when you were
Turn the camera on, please. Turn the camera on.
Okay.
Well, it's,
He comes back.
The moon is 3 days away, and this is late.
This is elder abuse.
How could you possibly walk on the moon 2 days later when this was shot on the 18th?
I feel like if it was Donald Trump, you would have a different attitude.
You're showing this, and then you want
No.
to see my reaction.
I know for a fact
That's slimy
Because
journalism.
Donald Trump didn't go to the moon.
You ought to be ashamed of
Here's the
yourself.
document that I have in here. You'll find that it's not. That this is a personal plea to do with this right.
Well, we sit and we talk about things ahead of
This is the
time.
document that you want to see. I know for a fact.
But what it is you're trying to do is unethical. You don't believe that?
No, I do not.
Well, then we have a difference of opinion.
This
This
is
is
maybe
where
wrong.
you're using
He's a
the
wormy guy.
spacecraft
Yeah,
that appears
he's
to be the
upset.
Earth.
Okay, so, and I know what you're talking about because he does look uncomfortable, but we can't spend too long watching the video.
well,
Let's talk about
it. Wouldn't
it.
have been too long, but
But it's just, I know what you're talking about. He looks uncomfortable, and he says a bunch of stuff that implies that he didn't do it.
I feel like
But
you
But-
don't play it and then you paraphrase in a way that is not accurately describing the video, though.
what I'm saying, what I'm about to explain to you, it makes that not matter. And it gives
Wait,
that
okay, but
context.
before you say that, are you going to recant your statement that was actual footage of them halfway to the moon,
That-
showing a waxing Earth?
That is
from space.
That is footage.
When
You
the
know
footage,
why?
the full footage actually shows.
You know why I know that? Because that isn't secret. That was aired live on television. The day that happened, that was aired live on television. And he cut it out to where he showed the parts where the exposure gets lifted up by the camera, and the parts where it's zoomed out and where people are like in the way and stuff. But he doesn't show the whole thing. And he says that he got it secretly when that aired on television. There are newspaper clippings about that. He explains I watched the full video.
Do you have this?
Yeah, we could look it up.
Okay, show me, because this is the first time I'm hearing of this.
Yeah, because I watched the debunking.
And this is the
video.
thing, like,
and this guy's a fucking liar. He's a piece of shit. But I'm about to go on my rant now.
And this is the thing. I mean, if what you're saying is true, then I will take all of this back. Okay, but I've never heard that before. I've never heard a defense. Literally all I've ever heard people say about this footage is, they were just fucking around, you dumbass. They were playing around.
Yeah.
When that's obviously not what was happening. That's not they weren't playing around.
See, what you gotta get is a counter conspiracy theorist on this. Okay, so he says the date in that, but it's... Okay, I'm gonna check the cameras. Check the
audio.
Cameras are looking good.
Audio's still going.
Cool. Okay, so can you rewind that video back to the beginning? Because he says the day it happens, and he isn't lying about the day.
Well, I mean, it would have been during the whatever days the moon landings were. Where did he say at the very beginning of the interview?
Yeah, he says the date, but I think we might be able to get it just by looking this up.
Okay. Well, yeah.
I'm going to just look up broadcast halfway from the moon, Apollo 11. Now, I know this exists because I actually watched it earlier, but I barely fucking ran out of time right before I had to leave. Like, that's why I left at 8 o'clock. It's because I was fucking watching that thing up until the last minute. So this is 1969 Apollo 11 TV transmission from halfway to the moon. This is the smoking gun in the documentary A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. This is what he's talking about when he says a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. And so what the director does is he deceivingly cuts in a frame that says that this isn't allowed to be like given to people. What is that? It's like a red frame that basically says like this is he's like implying it says it's confidential, but it doesn't say that. It says it's not for like general viewing purposes or something like that. But he doesn't, there's no actual connection between that image and what he shows afterwards. What he shows afterwards is a broadcast that they did halfway from the moon, and they have a whole conversation up until that point. And the part he very specifically tries to hone in on this part where there's like a sound that sounds like the word talk. But if you listen to the full broadcasts, which we will, there are a lot of these little sound things that you'll hear. So this looks like the video. It's a 30-minute long video. And it fucking opened YouTube again. I'm about to crash this thing. So I'll just look it up. So, and a lot of the ways because this guy, he created his documentary in the 90s. It came out in 2001, but he started.
Sounds about right.
He probably started it around like 95 or something, because he had to get his stuff together, you know, and it takes a long time to build something like that. Before that, he made commercials, and then he makes this video, and so this is 30 years, 20 years after the moon landing. So people don't have as good a, like, we don't know about the fucking moon landing, but it was a big public event, you know. There was press all over the fucking place. There was press at NASA. There was press fucking everywhere. Everybody, like, was paying attention when stuff happened. And so when this happened,
But everybody was getting their information from like the TV and the radio back then.
yeah, but it was also, there were also independent people who were, people going out and getting the broadcasts themselves, pointing antenna to the moon to get the broadcasts from the Apollo 11 crew. Individual, just like nerds, like literal fucking like button up 60s fucking radio nerds.
I don't know how you can verify that.
You can. We could look that up afterwards, but we can verify it. It's probably pretty easy. But we'll look up.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you can find like articles talking about it. How can you verify that they actually did that and that it worked?
Well, I mean, if there's a story of someone doing it and it's like, oh, little Johnny Ableton was able to listen to the moon thing with his telescope, and here's Johnny just standing here with his fucking glasses, and he has this fucking dumb little invention, and he's like, there's no reason to disbelieve. That's a primary source.
What do you mean there's no reason to disbelieve? If this whole thing is a conspiracy, then any information on it can't just be taken at face value.
So let's not
you have
conspiracy.
No, you can't say that, because the whole debate is whether this is a conspiracy.
Yeah, and
you can't then
you evidence, and you can't say every bit of evidence is thus illegitimate because it's something.
No, I'm saying it can't be taken at face value. I'm saying it can't be taken at face value if we're talking about whether or not it's a conspiracy.
What we're doing is we're combining all of these bits of information, right, to disprove this guy's fucking stupid ass lies. Like, every individual thing he says in this documentary is a lie, so we have to go through every individual one.
Okay, but I was just talking about your one claim right there, that there are individual people who... Okay, I was saying I don't know how you can verify that.
Okay, well, we'll Google it afterwards. But it's very verifiable.
I'm sure Google would say that happened, but...
I'm not saying just listen to the first thing Google says. I'm saying go to...
if you what I'm asking you,
a newspaper written in 1968 in Nebraska by a random fucking.
What I'm asking you is what would the evidence actually be? Like, what are we looking for here that would actually prove that happened?
Well, for the individual nerd broadcasters, thousands of people who did it as a hobby, because radio stuff was a big hobby back in the 60s. We didn't have like internet for all the fucking like coding type of people to do that, so they got into ham radio and stuff. And if it's true that they were broadcasting these radio signals from the moon to Houston, or to an antenna that sent a different antenna to a different antenna to Houston, then that means individuals who could face up at the moon could point their things at it and listen to it. That would be like the closest to verifiable physical proof that you can have. But I also have other things to mention after that. But we're going to talk about this the second I cast halfway from the moon. So this appears to be a raw space video, 30 minutes long, the Apollo 11 broadcast from the moon. The full thing. The thing where he takes it out of context. Same video. So this already proves it's a lie. Not everything about it, but it proves that where he got it is completely fucking made up. This serendipity is him fucking lying. And so Houston specifically tells him, let's also get a shot of the crew. And so that's why he zooms out later and turns on the light and changes the exposure on the camera, is to see the crew. But at that point, the light from the planet would be too bright, because you have to turn the exposure all the way up, because that light is actually really dim they have in there. But they turn the exposure up and it makes them look lighter, but it makes the window look bright as fuck. So when you see this, he's zooming the camera in as much as he can to look out of this window from an angle, and it's a rounded square angle, a rounded square window. So there's an edge on this side and an edge on this side, and a fucking dude with a camera, 0G, trying to fucking angle out a window and turn a dial to zoom in this whole time. And this is Neil himself. And when he talks, like, there's a little bit beforehand, before it goes live, where he talks to Houston, and he tells Houston, hey, before we go into this next part of the flight where we end up spinning in circles, can I broadcast this? And they're like, yeah. So they schedule it and do it.
Could you describe what you're looking at, over? So you're seeing our left-hand window, just a little more than a half. We're looking at the eastern Pacific Ocean, and the north half of the top half of the screen, we can see North America, Alaska, United States, Canada, Mexico, and Central America. South America becomes invisible because beyond the terminator or inside the shadow. We can see the oceans with a definite blue cast, see white bands of major cloud formations across the Earth, and can see
What was going on right there with that thing blocking the Earth?
coastline.
So
Pick out
the thing that the documentary tries to claim is that they have a piece of paper right here, right? A piece of cardboard that does
right
the
there. That
crescent.
was just like one of their arms or something.
Yeah, but what's actually happening is it's a 3/4 Earth, and they're looking through a window at an angle. So it's a curved window like this, and they're looking at it like that. And so when they come out, you start to see where they sway a little, the camera sways a little bit, and that's when it catches it on this edge, and then it'll catch it on this edge a little bit. But you can see when they zoom all the way out and they turn on the lights, the window is square. You can see the window perfectly when it's light in there. And it's not a circular window, which is something that he tries to say, like, oh, they were doing an illusion on the window. But what's actually happening is they have the exposure as low as they can get it, and they're zooming in as much as they can. So, and he's trying to keep it fucking steady, and it's just hard, you know? So when he zooms out, you see a lot of weird stuff that the guy then misconstrues as him like trying to like hide it. But I don't think this is when it airs quite yet, because they talk for a little bit and then he's like, can we go on? And then they're like, yeah, we'll let you know in a minute. And then they let him go on, and then that's the broadcast that everybody got.
It appears to us that there are two distinct cloud formations trending east-west, one approximately about around the equator, and one around 30 or so south latitude. Could you tell us exactly where those cross the...
And that's why you don't see any like stars or anything, is because the exposure's so low that all you're getting is the planet.
Well, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
I just know other people,
that,
like some conspiracy theorists watching this might be like, they never mention the stars once.
No, that's one of those claims that is fucking stupid. It annoys me.
Mm-hmm. It's a basic camera thing. Even he admits, the dude admits it in the...
I can hardly see the stars with my naked eyes, usually. Like, just right over there in the Walmart parking lot when I'm at work. Those bright lights.
Yeah. And you can see in... I'll pause this real quick, but I'll say, in the main documentary, he also implies that one of the astronauts lies about seeing the stars. But what he's talking about is he couldn't see the stars when the Earth was eclipsing over the sun, and he was looking at the corona.
But this is one of my gripes.
Later, he says that he could see the stars, but if you look at the full quote, he's talking about being on the dark side of the moon. And when they're on the dark side of the moon, it's like they're able to see the stars again.
This is one of my gripes about astronauts in general, not these astronauts, but like more modern astronauts, is they cannot get their story straight on that. They will be asked in interviews if they can see stars while looking at the sun. Some of them say, oh yeah, they're so bright, it's amazing. And some of them say, no, you can't see anything. It's the deepest black ever.
Well, I think the problem is you can't talk to... the thing about astronauts is they're pilots. They're not engineers or scientists, you know.
They're not pilots. They're
specially trained, but no,
thing.
they're specially trained, but they are pilots. That's what like the classification is. They're not taught all of the science or the engineering behind everything. They're taught how to use everything like a pilot would use a jet.
But we're talking about observations, not how things work. We're talking about...
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, if you ask them questions about like things like that, then they're gonna be like everybody else who's like pilots claim to see a lot of stuff.
If you ask somebody if
like
they can see stars on Earth, most people will give you a similar answer. They'll be like, well, it depends. Like, you can in the mountains, not in the city.
If you ask a bunch of people if you could see stars during the dusk, you'd get mixed answers. because people would be trying to fill that in their brain. You know?
Well, some people would answer based off of their personal experience. Some people would be smart enough to be like, well, it depends on where you're at and what the conditions
and a lot
are.
of people would fill it in with their brain and think they're earnestly answering the answer yes or no.
But when it comes to space, we're talking about whether it's a deep black, like what this footage seems to show, or if it's bright lights everywhere, so beautiful and brilliant everywhere you look. These are two polar opposite stories that we get from astronauts.
Well, and the thing is that there's two different sides of the moon, and one is dark and one is bright. That seems like a pretty.
They'll be
fine answer
talking
for
about
me.
the same, like whether like looking at the sun. Like I've heard quotes from astronauts in interviews, like saying like when they're asked, like looking towards the sun if they could see stars.
I think
And-
whether or not like those people might just suck, but I don't think that proves anything really.
No,
Like,
but to me, it just comes down to intuition. At that
maybe
point, to me.
astronauts suck. Maybe you just don't like their vibe. You know?
Yeah, well, some of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. It also appears that just to the
Some of them actually seem like really nice people, and I hate to think that they're lying. So, like, I want to make it clear this isn't like a belief that, like a religious belief I just cling on to. Like, this is something that I have come to the conclusion of over.
Yeah. And I
What I
genuinely
have-
believe you've been misinformed by charlatans. And so that's what we're trying to reconcile here.
I can see on the monitor the thing you're talking about, but right now I can't get my eye to the window to pick out just where it crosses the
See,
shoreline.
so he says that right there. And so there's a part in A Funny Thing Happens on the Way to the Moon where he says, he says that it's right up against the glass, but there's stuff getting in the way. So which one is it? But what he's saying is that the camera is in the way of the window. So he can't get in front of the camera to look at the moon because it's tiny off in the distance. He has to zoom in with the camera to get a good reading of the moon. But he can't, like, if he looks at the moon, he moves the camera. And so he's complaining about it right here. He's actually saying, I can't actually see it very well. And he's like, you see the camera shift a little bit because he's probably just trying to like look over through this fucking window.
You guys are doing a good job. It's a real steady picture here. Where clarity is excellent. The color, it's the clouds are, the whites are distinct. The rest of it looks like to me anyway, on the monitor I'm observing, is a fairly greenish blue, is the way I describe it. Over.
That's the most basic description of a planet. It looks like a greenish blue. The Earth, huh? Well, I guess the colors are right.
Yeah, we're not colorblind.
He's just all like, I think it looks a good purple and yellow.
Looks kind of round.
A grayish color rather than a brown.
Yeah, that's true. The land does kind of look gray.
Well, it's true that we do not have the depth of color at this range that we enjoyed at 50,000 miles out. However, the oceans still are a definite blue, and the continents are generally brownish in cast, although it is true that they're tending more toward gray now than they were at the closer ranges. Roger, 11. We've been, I've just been vectored to another monitor, and sure enough, the browns are coming in a lot.
I think
more
it's a cool
distinctly
video
over
because
here.
it's like both
For it, we
super
have a
boring
fire,
and super
screen
interesting at the
control
same time. Like,
Yeah, well, and like, see, and I always watch these videos from a weird perspective because I'm looking at it like I don't trust it. And so I'm like, if this is real, this is the most amazing thing ever, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, that's why, like,
but you've been led to believe that they're lying, and that's what we're, you know, I think there's a lot of bullshit in places.
So what's happening here? They're
It's
just
zero
spinning the camera
gravity, so the
around.
camera's floating around, and he lost
So
the
he's
picture.
11, that's a pretty good roll there.
See, you even commented on it.
So he just accidentally dropped it.
Yeah. There's also a part where the camera accidentally like goes completely back, and he's just like, "Hey, we lost the camera."
Pretty floppy. Let me try that one again.
Oh, he's trying to do a spin with it in frame.
You'll never beat out the Thunderbird.
Yeah, he's doing a bad job. Yeah, and like the dude doesn't he lies his fucking ass off about this thing. Like he doesn't even say one true thing about it. It's actually like some of the other things he says are more difficult to debunk than his smoking gun. You know, it's just so well taken out of context that it's completely fucking misleading the way he puts it. You know.
I'm making myself seasick, darling. I'll just put you back right side up where you belong. Roger. You don't get to do that every day.
I'm still not seeing the part where that he shows though. Is that in this?
Where what? Which
The
part?
part that he shows where like
It's in here somewhere
because you see whatever this like this is supposed to be the Terminator line of the Earth, but in that footage that starts moving around too. In the footage from Bart Sabro, the Terminator line starts moving around too, and what he says is that he's saying that they put like a little cardboard cutout or something.
Yeah.
Right?
And what's actually happening is it's going against the window, but oh, I'm pretty sure it's in this. This looks like the part where it starts zooming out already.
Okay, Apollo 11, Houston, we got the picture back now. Unfortunately, we only have one.
Yeah, he cuts it all from this whole like 30-minute stream, so it's going to be hard to find like the few seconds where they say the things he says.
Probably better than ours is. Roger, we copy. 11, Houston, if you could comply, we'd like to see some smiling faces up there. If you could give us some interior.
See, that's Houston telling them we want to see the crew.
See you, over. Okay, we'll reconfigure the TV for that.
And he says we'll fix the TV. Which he's calling the camera a TV because he's a fucking pilot and not a scientist.
Well, I think that has more to do with the fact that this is the 60s.
Yeah.
And
so I think this is after the thing starts, but because now it's going to zoom out all the way, and this when he turns on the light and you see the crew and you get to see the window. You know. Do you want to go back and try to find the part where it hits the window?
I mean, it didn't show the same part from that documentary. This is the same light though in the corner that's showing up.
Yeah. Because he's doing the zoom out part now. But the part that you're talking about is going to be somewhere in the first 20 minutes of this. It's going to be hard to find that
It
exact.
didn't show it in here, though. There's the part in the documentary. Okay, no, I think that's it.
Okay.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's stuff getting in the way, the wires and shit. Yeah, and so you see the light. So this is because the exposure is all the way down. I mean, yeah, all the way down. And so you cut. That's the other half of the window. Just covered it completely.
Of the inside, appears you've taken the camera away from the left window. Now over. That's correct. We're
Soon
moving
lost
back
it.
and reconfiguring for interior lighting.
And there it is. So now it's hitting the top of the window. It looks like. Either that, yeah, it's the top of the window.
We can still see the earth.
So the window isn't a circle.
And appears that,
I will
we
be able
can
to see that
a
afterwards,
floodlight,
too.
Off to the left, either that or some sun shafting through the
And
hatch
so
window.
I'm pretty sure how we got like the part that looks like someone coming from the left is he takes one of these parts and he's zoomed in so it looks like a bad quality. But it's
now
just
we're coming in,
it's just him getting in the way because he's moving the camera, you know. And then we get to see he turns the exposure back up.
Big Mike
I want to see this
Collins there.
window.
You got a
You
little
said
bit
it's square.
Yeah.
Yeah, hello there, sports fans. You got a little bit of me, but Neil's in the center couch and Buzz is doing the camera work this time.
So we're looking at it from the
Looks like a
side.
round window.
It's a
from what I see.
rounded square. We can look at a picture of the Apollo 11 thing if you want.
Yeah, that didn't work.
But there are no rounded windows on Apollo 11. They're all rounded squares. They all look like this. Oh, it's a pretty good shot of it. Not perfect, but...
It's getting a lot better now, 11. Mikey coming in 5 by. Got a good...
See, but he's not trying to hide anything. This is live on TV. He's just like fucking doing his astronaut shit, floating around, fucking... Yeah, that's a good shot of it. You see the square. And that's just like the light.
Well, see, it looks like a square frame, but it's hard to tell if the actual, like, window part, like what shape that is.
Yeah.
The light, but it just looks round.
It's like glaring on it pretty hard, but I don't. It's so funny because it's hard to determine exactly how dim it was in there for them, the whole time, because they're fucking with this camera shit. So
Yeah.
Very comfortable, but after a while, you get to the point where you sort of get tired of rattling around and banging off the ceiling and the floor and the side, so you tend to find a little corner somewhere and put your knees up or something like that to wedge yourself in, and that seems more at home. Roger, looks like Neil was coming in 5 by there. 11, Mike, see you in the background. The definition is really outstanding. The colors are good. It's a real good picture we're getting here. The Commander Armstrong. When you take the camera over towards the window with the sun shining through it, tends to
Okay.
blank it out though.
Are you satisfied with this so far? Or?
Yeah, Neil's standing on his head again. He's
So
kinda
this
making
is-
me nervous. Roger.
You're saying this is live on TV. This was...
This was broadcast. There are news articles if you want to look them up. We can look them up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
If you want to show me.
I could double check it. I don't
See,
mind doing
this
that.
is what research is about, people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Fucking look
look at
into
the
it. Don't
source
just-
and then you look at what
Yeah.
the source's source is.
And don't just say some dumb shit like, oh, they're just goofing. They're just goofing around.
See, because that's the kind of shit that makes me not take anything you say seriously.
Yeah.
If what you just showed me was on the news, which, I mean, it appears to be something that wasn't, like, secret, like what you just showed me.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm not saying that I don't believe what you're saying. So, I mean, obviously that doesn't prove the moon landing was actually real, but I would say that's a pretty good debunking of this.
Of that point.
Yeah. Which I did believe to be, because if that was actually leaked footage of,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Then it would
it's
be-
a pretty
it would-
good
I mean, it would be-
fucking smoking gun.
But yeah, that's one of the things that, like, when he mentioned, I was like, I don't know about that one, bro. I don't know if you got any, like, secret footage. Because all this stuff is pretty publicly available. You can do a public information request, like a freedom of information request for, like, all the Apollo 11 footage. I mean, probably won't do you any good, and you can probably get it from NASA's website, but you could do that.
Yeah.
But he's counting on people not having, like, either been born in that time and have been around during the moon landing and have, like, known about, like, all these broadcasts and, like, fucking, because they seem to have kept in touch with the astronauts, like they were fucking up their asses with press, like, the entire time, from the fucking from the get-go to the launching to getting back. And
What do you mean?
like they were broadcasting every single thing they could, and they were like that's why they fucking broadcasted the launch from the moon, which is a conspiracy in itself. And they broadcasted the fucking Neil talking to the president. They broadcasted halfway from the moon, and they're doing all this from fucking they're sending this to the earth and fucking it through radio and or whatever invisible magic. I think it's radio, but yeah.
I like that you said invisible magic.
But But yeah, and there are a couple things like the Van Allen belts, I guess, because he says that you need like a thick plate of steel to resist the radiation from the Van Allen belts, and that the Van Allen belts were like a bit of a mystifying thing.
Well, this is
secret.
what NASA has said. That, I mean,
Yeah.
and we can pull up that footage if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Of them like saying, you know, we're building this new Orion spacecraft. It's going to help us take people through the Van Allen radiation belts. This will allow us to go beyond low Earth orbit.
Yeah.
So we could go to the moon and Mars.
And that was probably taken out of context, but I don't want to go into another thing like that. I'm talking about the video specifically. What he says about the Van Allen radiation belt is not true. He says that they would need a thick layer of steel to protect them from the radiation, which isn't like they already had scientists who were talking about the radiation because the Van Allen radiation belts were discovered before the moon landing expeditions. So they were considering this. All of the astronauts wore a radioactive like radometer, I think is what it's called, to measure the amount of radiation they received. And also they didn't have to use lead. Lead isn't a good thing to use for that. I guess some of the radiation, if it hits lead, it specifically creates X-rays. And this is how X-rays are done, is you shoot a photon at lead and it creates an X-ray. So if they made it out of lead, it would have actually killed the astronauts. What they used was polyurethane, because I guess polyurethane is like one of the best materials it was at the time to prevent the radiation from coming through. But it still came through and they kept track of it. We could look up the logs of their radiation throughout the whole trip. And that's probably why the dude was a fucking loony ass old person.
No, but if you watch the full documentary, Astronauts Gone Wild, there's one of the interviews with one of the astronauts. I forget which one or which mission he was on, but he's asked about the Van Allen radiation belts, and he specifically says they hadn't been discovered yet.
Well, he's wrong.
And it wasn't an issue.
Well, that's not true. You can look it up.
He literally says
that dude he interviews was wrong. That was one guy you can Google this stuff and it's not true. The stuff that the guy said in the interview, not true. You can Google it and
why would an astronaut
we can Google Van Allen radiation belts.
But okay, but based off of what you just told me, why would an astronaut who went through all of that be completely unaware?
Because he's a pilot and not a scientist.
You said they did all these scientific experiments.
No, they do little, like they collect samples and they have to put down things, which I'll get to that in a little bit, but they were, both of them were given tasks, at least if we're talking about Apollo 11 specifically. Both Neil and Buzz were given specific tasks that were dictated by the scientists. You know, they were told to go and collect dirt from over here, go and place a thing over here, take pictures of Buzz Aldrin. Like they specifically told Neil to take a bunch of pictures of Buzz Aldrin, which is funny because in the documentary he says that that's a big reason why Neil doesn't look good, because they didn't take enough pictures of Neil, which is just stupid. If you look at the fucking mission like instructions, the goal was to take pictures of Buzz doing some of the work so they could evaluate how hard it would be for the astronauts to move around on the planet's surface and do work on it. And so one of them was told to take pictures of the other. That's why there's only a bunch of pictures of one of them and not the other, because one guy's taking pictures. And they the dude claims that one of the pictures of Neil is the only picture taken from the side camera of the Apollo thing. And it's literally a picture. He takes a frame out of a video consisting of 1,400 frames and says it's the one photo of him. There are there's like dozens of minutes of him walking around doing stuff on that camera. And he takes one shot of it and says, this is the one photo. Just lies, just fucking straight up lies about it. And the Russians sent turtles through the Van Allen radiation belt. They tested it first and they sent turtles through it to see just how bad it would fuck up the turtles and then test the radiation when they came back. So they sent these turtles, and I think it was turtles and like mealworms. I don't know, but the Russians were doing weird shit at the same time. You know, they were trying
Russians
to
were doing really fucking weird shit.
But the cool thing about this is the dude who doesn't understand the Cold War tries to use the Cold War as one of his reasonings for why the U.S. would lie about it. but he says that the Manhattan Project was like a well-kept secret. And it's such bullshit because the Manhattan Project was very thoroughly leaked to Russia. There were spies in America that leaked information from the Manhattan Project to Russia. They created a nuclear bomb as well. They also have nukes. Like the Manhattan Project wasn't a good kept secret, you know? And so like he uses that as a reason for why like why they had to like narrow it down for NASA and then fake stuff different ways. But then all of them are fucking lies. But about the turtles, since the Cold War happened, there were a bunch of people checking each other. Not only were there scientists checking each other like scientists usually do, but you also had the Cold War thing where if the US lied about it, Russia would figure out and call them on it, and they would look like fucking idiots. Like, and it would lose them the space war, which was a pretty big deal at the time.
Yeah, but that.
And the Van Allen radiation belt was discovered in 1958, 11 years before the moon landing. So the guy he talked to was wrong. That astronaut is a pilot and doesn't know history, apparently. He didn't pay attention in that class.
He didn't pay attention on his own missions, on what he was like instructed to do regarding the Van Allen radiation belt. Because what you're telling me is that they were instructed.
They were told to measure it the same way those turtles were told to measure it. By just being there and having devices that measured the radiation, you know, they're just dudes. That's probably why he gets like indignant and is like, we're just pilots. Why are you fucking harassing me so much? We're just the guys that went on the thing. And that's probably why he's saying that, because he doesn't have good answers for any of these, because he isn't the guy who invented the lunar rover. He isn't the guy who invented the landing thing, or the guy who made the camera. He's just told how to use the things. You know, it's like every jet pilot isn't going to know everything about a jet, you know?
Yeah, but what he said that too was when he was shown that footage, which that's what I find confusing about the whole thing is why didn't he just say, you're taking this out of context? Because and say what you just showed me, because
well, I think
what I see in that documentary is a man who doesn't have an answer for what he's being shown.
Well, I think what is happening is Buzz is a very prideful person who is being interrogated by someone who, you know, if this is, I mean, the guy's a fucking liar and he's lying about Buzz Aldrin. And so like he has enough reason to be fucking irritated with the guy as it is, you know, like a guy that he like it's probably heard about. That last interview, he probably realized who the guy was at some point in time. And that's probably why he got up. And then he probably decides to sit back down because it's like, well, I'm fucking 80 something years old. I'm dying of radiation crazies. And I got to fucking talk to this guy and fucking argue with him once and for all. But it's like,
but instead of just saying this footage is taken out of context, he makes it like he makes the point before the whole thing starts. He's like, I don't see any benefit for me doing this. Yeah. And then he goes and does exactly what he was saying.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Because that's it. Because he's being taken advantage of and he's an old man. Like I'm sure someone could trick your grandpa into something fucking stupid, you know? Like I'm sure that's possible with the right conditions, you know, like,
yeah, but like,
and that's what Buzz Aldrin is somebody's grandpa, and he did something 50 years ago, and he's being like brought up to a guy who's like, I have this secret footage. Here's this thing that we showed on television, but you don't know that because, well, I guess you do know that, but you might not even fucking remember this because you might not have even seen this footage because you're there recording it. And you're not the guy who watched it from base. You're not the guy who watched it from TV. So he probably never saw that footage specifically because he was there helping. He wasn't the guy recording it because Armstrong was recording it, but he was there while it was being recorded, you know? But he probably didn't fucking, I mean, it sounds a lot like he didn't even like pay attention when that was happening, you know? Like fucking who knows what Buzz was doing during that little fucking moment when Neil is recording the moon, you know, like they don't I think they show him off to the left and he's like sitting off, like doing, like sitting there. Like I don't think he's actively doing something, like for all.
Well, then after the confrontation happens, that's when he gets all fidgety. He starts like folding a towel or something. Like just doing weird shit, which obviously doesn't prove anything, but
Yeah.
he definitely starts acting strange. I mean,
But I think you could put someone in a panic attack doing something like that. Really, like I think if I was, I mean, I think he needed more media training. I think this dude just never got media training. And Sibrel or Libel or whatever, he knows this. He knows that Buzz is like fucking gold to get to. You know, if you get to Buzz, you could fucking make himself look like an ass just by asking him a few questions about the moon landing. You know, you don't have to really prove anything. You could show him something that he just doesn't know enough context of and be like, so what about this? And he'll fucking do a bunch of bad defenses, and then you have fucking fodder for a fucking 45-minute video.
so another question: why hasn't he sued him? Because he said if you show this publicly, you're open to a lawsuit. Gets confronted again, punches the dude in the face, but he never sues him. Like that to me is a little strange too. Like
Maybe Buzz is a good guy. Maybe he doesn't want. Maybe or also maybe,
I feel like suing him would be the right thing to do.
yeah, but not under Buzz's moral framework. Like he might
punched him in the face.
Yeah, but he might. Well, he punched him in the face because this is the third time he's been confronted by
Yeah,
a guy.
so
and
sue him.
Yeah, but if
I don't think it has anything to do
I
with
know.
morals if you're willing to punch him. That's all I'm saying.
No, I think there's a big difference between being someone, because there's a whole cultural thing about suing people, especially for boomers. Boomers don't like the idea of like suing people when you don't need to, like flagrant lawsuits. There's sort of a meme, as they all think that like lawsuits are all fake and bullshit. Like I mean, I don't have evidence for it, but I've heard plenty of old people talk this way, and like
That makes no sense, because I feel like he would definitely win if this is.
Well,
like,
of course he would win, but it would just give the guy more attention. Like maybe Buzz just doesn't want to fucking interact with the guy, you know? Like he just doesn't like, and he hits him because he is bad at fucking doing this.
But now
you know?
there's
nobody's
not,
under the impression that Buzz makes great decisions.
but
you
now
know?
there's not only a documentary showing that footage appearing to look fake, and a documentary of him reacting, appearing guilty. Sorry. Now there's also in that documentary him punching the dude in the face. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's not helping himself. Like
I know
he should
but
just sue.
I think that's the thing about fucking people. Bad actors bait you into acting in ways that makes it harder for you to like they bait you into ways that make you look bad, and that's their job. That's
he's
like,
got to have like lawyers too, right? Like
maybe his lawyers told him not to bother with it because it gives the guy more attention. Maybe Buzz.
I find that hard.
Maybe Buzz was told by his lawyers to sue, and he's thinking like, "Oh, I'm not going to sue him. I'll fight him like a real man." And then he hits him, and then he like almost goes to jail over it. And he's just like, the guy was poking me with a book. I mean, I would fucking hit someone. But let's move on to, let's talk about this for just a minute, because we're running over on the debate. So Van Allen radiation belt was discovered in 1958. So this is a bunch of later experiments. Van Allen probes. And so this might be why they were talking about it in recent time, was these probes. This probably is to get a more accurate reading without sending people out there, because there's probably not even probably, there's definitely a flaw in sending people up there to be the measuring devices, you know? Like, just strap measuring devices on them and be like, we're going to measure the radiation this way. So that's probably why it was brought up in a modern context. But yeah, this stuff's a little bit too complex for me to understand. But basically, like, from what I was like, coming to understand, it's just it's a radiation belt, but it's not like gonna fucking. They have a lot of studies on it to make sure it doesn't kill you, and they probably did radiation poison these fucking astronauts. You know, like, I wouldn't doubt if Buzz Aldrin has radiation poisoning, or if Neil Armstrong died early because of radiation. You know, they would have covered that up. They probably don't want to announce that their astronauts are dying because of this. And that's probably why, like, that's probably another good reason as to why they would internally want to stop the moon missions and not like, because obviously, like, externally, it was like, we've done enough moon missions. This costs a lot of fucking money. And, so, let's do closing statements. I'm done with this debate. We'll come back to it if we have to one day. I guess I'll say something, then you can say something.
Yeah.
So I think Sibrel, the guy, his name is impossible, and I think he's like not only a liar, but I think he's a Christian neo-fascist propagandist. And I think it's pretty obvious in the first video that he does. I don't know about Astronauts Gone Wild. Every time I hear the title, I think of Girls Gone Wild, and I just think,
obviously what it's named after.
Yeah, and I imagine that the editing is like a Girls Gone Wild episode, but I have no idea what it looks like. But I'm sure it's full of lies, just like the first one. But the first one is like he like implies the Tower of Babel is real, and that like it was used as like a way for the Babylonian race to show that they were the strongest race in the world.
What are we talking about?
The beginning of funny thing happened on the way to the moon. I'm just doing my ending statements. So he says the Tower of Babel is real, and that the Babylonians built it to show that they were the strongest race in all the world, and then it was destroyed. And then and that is just what? That's not
the same documentary.
True. It's the same documentary. It's the first 5 minutes. It's his intro. He does like ha ha ha, like chorus songs, and then he's talking about the fucking Tower of Babel as if it's real. And he's like, and the problem, and what happened is, they couldn't achieve this, and it was destroyed. That's me paraphrasing. And then he talks about the Titanic and how the Titanic was meant to be indestructible, but it was destroyed. He's like basically doing like a story.
No, okay, I think I remember what you're saying.
But what I'm saying is that's this is my like personal opinion, but beyond the debate, in my ending statement, I think that is a pretty strong indication that this motherfucker has no qualms about lying to push some type of weird, like either religious or pseudo-religious, like agenda that is catered towards believing that like people will be punished by God if we act too pridefully, which is strange for the very first 5 minutes of a documentary about the moon landing. I don't understand why he did that, other than the fact that he has to be a neo-fascist Christian propagandist. And that is my closing argument.
Okay, I don't from what I remember, I don't think the Tower of Babel thing was him saying this was a literal thing.
It was.
He was using it as an example.
I just watched it earlier today.
I'll have to
He said it like it was a real fucking thing.
You said, but he didn't say it was a real thing. He just used it as an example.
No, he said it was a real thing. He was referring to it like it was history. Like I would refer to a historical story at the beginning of a documentary.
But at the same time, he's a Christian. So I'm not even saying that I'm not arguing that he doesn't believe in the Tower of Babel. I mean, he probably does. But I mean, I don't know if that's what he was saying right there. But
no. Well, he's making I'll let you finish. I'll let you do your closing statement. You can do the whole thing. You don't have to.
Well, I was just saying to that point. Like I would have to look back at that, but I don't know if that makes him a Christian fascist, whatever you say.
Propagandist. He's fucking crazy, and he's like pushing like
using your religious texts as an example for something. I don't know how that's out of
people and implying biblical stories are true history while you're also lying about secret government secret government conspiracies. It's very there's only certain groups that do that.
So before this isn't even my closing statement, okay. But a question for you: what do you think his intent is then?
I think I mean,
because it's not like the moon landing.
Like I said,
in the Bible, like it's not like it's something the Bible is like, if they say they walk on the moon, they're Satan. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I think it's to reaffirm anti-science beliefs in any way he can, and I think he's specifically interested in the moon landing. And I think if you
but
if you can make a couple good documentaries that are lasting, like this one is proven to be, you can have a pretty like okay career off just doing a couple things, you know. And beforehand he made TV commercials, and that's a grind, you know. That's like Hollywood shit, and that's hard. So he probably was like, I'm gonna do something that I can sell on my website and is gonna keep me fed for the next 20 years. And so it's the most sensationalist thing he can, and he doesn't care if he lies or anything, because it's the only thing he's ever done. It's
but he
like,
believes in everything else NASA does, and he's very anti-flat Earth. So that doesn't really fit the whole just being anti-science and going for the most extreme thing.
maybe he does that as sort of to be misleading in a way, like to be like I'm the moderate of the two, you know. There's flat earthers and there's me. I'm the moderate of the two. But he's also fucking crazy as shit, you know. Like he's not just a right winger. He's not just a flat earther who is under the perception that if anything, he's very like an asshole for talking shit on flat earthers, because the only thing that doesn't blend well with flat earth ideology in the documentary is the fact that his argument is that the thing was faked at near earth orbit. That whole part was faked at near earth orbit. That's his argument. And that's not supposed to be a thing in whatever percentage of flat earth ideologies, you know. But in a lot of other flat earth ideologies it would work. But either way, he's just doing that to be like the middle guy. But he wants people to, he's probably someone who would prefer if the government were either Christian and very strong or non-existent, you know. And when you're a very strong Christian government, that's a bad thing. And when there's no government, that's a bad thing. But I believe that he is a fascist because someone who just, you know, from what I've noticed, libertarians don't seem to focus on lying to people. They focus on actual bad things that the government does. They just leave out the good things that the government does, you know. But like fascists will lie about fucking anything to create like sort of a break from like normal politics and reality for the people who follow them, you know. And that's why I believe that.
So you think this is him trying to just to sum it up in one sentence.
To sum it up, I think he's just trying to push fascism light, anti-government propaganda, not really saying too much as a cushy job. You know, he doesn't want to do a lot of like hard work like he had to early in his career when he learned videography originally. He cashed in on that videography, and yeah, he just wants to create his own little cult, and the politics of the video are slanted in a way where it's only beneficial towards fascists, I feel.
So do you think he believes the moon landing was actually real?
I think he does. I think he had to have gone through too much information not to know that. At the very least, he is someone who he either knows that it's true and he's lying, or he's crazy. But it's a lot of work for a crazy guy. And it's really clever for a crazy guy, some of the stuff he does. Even if it's like something you could figure out in 20 minutes of looking up the stuff. But, you know, he does a really good job at tricking people with a very nice British lady accent and a strong soundtrack. And I think that's the biggest red flag in his video before he even starts talking.
The British lady and the music.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a documentary without a British lady and the background music, man. Come on. It just wouldn't even be a documentary. It would just be like a fucking...
And anytime someone says, since the beginning of time, fucking watch out. because they're gonna say something wrong. What's your ending statement?
Okay, so I'd say, you know, maybe that bit of information was actually misinformation. I'll take the L on that one. Maybe I didn't do the research I should have on that, but it didn't seem like there was much research to do because, like I said, Buzz Aldrin didn't say anything about it, like being like what it actually was. Nobody in the comments or anything, like anywhere online, like talking about this ever once said, no, dude, that's just the footage that they showed on TV.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said that. They were just like, no, they were just fucking around. You're an idiot. You don't understand that they're just playing because astronauts are bored in space.
The ball is being very well hid, I think. I think it's it's obviously a very effective piece. Like whatever he intended to do with it, it's very effective at convincing people that the moon landings were fake to some extent. And ultimately it's very vague on what it's trying to exactly say, you know.
But like, it's just odd to me that in all of the conversations I've had and seen on this, nobody has ever said what you have just said and like linked to that video or anything like that. Yeah. It's just weird.
Kind of makes you disappointed in other people, huh?
Yeah, because I mean, like, I don't know, maybe I should have just went and looked at whatever footage was playing on TV. I didn't think to do that, I guess. I think what you should have done was you should have watched debunking videos, even if they don't seem earnest or they're like... But I have seen debunking videos.
Oh, you just didn't see, like...
I've never seen that.
Yeah. The newest one I saw, I guess it came out in 2019, so maybe I could link it to you later so you can check it out.
See, and I've watched a lot of debunking videos on a lot of stuff, and the thing that people do is they use fallacious logic in their debunkings. Almost every debunking video I've ever seen appeals to authority, appeals to incredulity, appeals to popularity, ad homs, all of them. Like, you know what I mean? You could probably list every single logical fallacy in most of those videos. And to me, that's just not how you debunk something. Even if some of the information you're presenting is legitimate, you stink the whole thing up by doing that.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem with debunking videos is they're just like kind of mean.
Well,
that's a little bit mean towards conspiracy theorists.
Well, that's the big,
what's
that's
point
the
of
ad
a
hom
debunking
part.
Video if it's not for the conspiracy theorist, you know?
And actually,
because I mean, the first thing that this video does, he's actually I will say this was a very balanced video, and if it was bullshit, I wouldn't have watched it. You know, I would have chose a different one. But he does the only thing he does that's even kind of rude is at the very beginning he uses the word conspiratards on the first frame. But after that, he's only talking facts. So I'll link it to you. You can check it out. He goes through every single claim the video makes and debunks every single one piece by piece and uses first account sources that it was on the news or TV, and also he goes through all the NASA footage and that. He's the guy who I learned about my whole argument from. So I would recommend that video.
Is this Dave McKeegan or what? Okay.
No, Dave McKeegan's pretty cool though. I've been watching his videos.
No, I know that's who you were referring to last week.
Yeah.
I literally just looked up Flat Earth Debunked. He's the first guy that comes up.
Yeah, he's been getting kind of he was a photographer before, so what he does is he focuses on the photos, conspiracy theories, because he's a professional photographer.
But he's one of those dudes that I watch some of his videos and I'm
he's a little
some of his information seems legitimate, but then he's using all these logical fallacies and being mean about it.
Yeah, he's
ends his video by saying,
I don't know,
basically don't reproduce anything. Basically. And that is the biggest red flag to me, that you are not in it to fucking.
And I think ultimately people on both sides are very frustrated, and getting to the truth is kind of frustrating. And some people it's people are a lot cockier when they had the right position in the first place, as opposed to being the person who has to learn. And if you're in the position to where you have to learn, I think you're a lot more humble about it. That's why I watch a lot of people like Dave McKeegan's good for the information, but I don't like his attitude. You know, I watch, my favorite people are people who.
Well, he just comes off like a grifter to me too. Even if what he's saying is true.
Well, he
he's
made
like,
all of his money off photography videos. He doesn't.
Well, it seems like he was doing that, and then he made one flat Earth video, and it blew up. And he's like, "Okay, this is my thing now." And then now he wears a shirt with a fucking flat Earth map on it.
I mean, it's
like,
pretty informational stuff. He gets into arguments with people who are saying like some pretty easily disprovable stuff. Like at least when it comes to like my favorite video of his is when he talks about the surveying, and he talks about that surveying tool that's a leveler, and how like if you point two levelers at each other, they go like that, like they go at a cross. They don't meet up eye to eye if you put them far enough away, and they're supposed to like be like true level, and the Earth doesn't have a true level, so they intersect. Go like that.
well, but
And that's just an
nowhere on the
thing.
ground is perfectly level anyway, so I don't know where you'd be doing those tests.
He explains that too. You have to do a bunch of dumb fucking math. Surveyors are taught how to do this math because they have to measure things accurately, and like they account for the curvature of the Earth, and they have to do everything accurately because they're the ones doing like large scale construction projects, like a pipeline that goes thousands of miles needs accurate measurements.
But that's one of those things that I because it's both. You get stories from both going both ways. I've heard from a lot of surveyors that they don't account.
Well, that's not true.
I've heard interviews with surveyors.
You can look up the surveyor's manual training handbook, and it says specifically that they do. So people who say that that's not true are lying.
Well,
it's that
but it's
simple.
the same thing with like snipers, like accounting for the Coriolis. Like, yeah, it's supposedly written down in the manuals and shit, but a lot of snipers say they don't.
Well, then
actually
they're
do
lying
that.
because if it's written down in the manuals, that's how they're trained to do the fucking thing. Like it's
well, but a lot of them say it's not actually done in practice. Like it's not actually practical to do in the first place, which to me always seemed weird. I don't know how you're accounting for the Coriolis effect in real time while doing sniper shots.
I don't think
that always seemed.
I think that's probably more like, if you're doing like a very long scale shot from miles away, you have to account for something like that. But if you're doing like most snipers aren't fucking miles away aiming at their target. They're on buildings like fucking 100, 200 feet away, not 200 yards away, you know? Like they're like most snipers are on buildings for like carnivals and parades, you know? That's the only time I've seen them in real life. So they're probably not used in practice because snipers are usually just like on buildings shooting at people on the ground, you know? Like they're not actually like doing fucking 5-mile shots through the woods and accounting for a fucking curve while the bullet travels this large distance, you know. But it's probably in the book because some dude was probably just like, hey, I actually got this shot, but I had to account for the curvature of the Earth, and here's the math equation I did. You know, that's usually how this stuff happens.
That's not what the Coriolis is.
The Earth spinning, yeah, but that's what I mean. But yeah, we're done with the debate. That's the end of that segment.
Well, okay, but my closing statement turned into another
okay.
debate.
You can finish your closing statement. I'll give you 2 more minutes.
So my closing statement would be so that piece of information maybe wasn't legitimate, but for me, on the moon landing in general, like there's just too much for me that just doesn't seem to add up. And with the space program in general, actually, it's not even really the moon landing. If I look at the moon landing alone, it doesn't bother me as much as like the whole. Like,
yeah. Well, and I think that's a good concern. Is that the end of your statement? Because I think
so in conclusion, it's going to take a lot to convince me that this is real because I don't trust the space program in general.
Yeah.
And with that distrust obviously comes with distrust with the moon landing. Yeah. And so even if this piece of information wasn't real, I'm not gonna recant my entire opinion on the whole thing.
So I believe the moon landing happened.
and I'm still not convinced.
Okay.
But you did a very fair job at debunking this piece of information that I thought was the smoking gun on the moon landing.
Thank you.
So congrats on that.
I think what would be fun is doing a moon landing video with like just getting all the Apollo footage, because there's so much Apollo footage. Like fucking, there were a bunch of missions. Oh.
Well, there was 11 to 17
so
were the ones that actually went to the moon.
And no, one of them blew up. So five got to the moon.
And then
one of them blew up, according to the video, to get more attention back on the moon landings, because everybody was getting bored. That's what the guy claimed, which is just like you're just claiming that. You have no basis to claim this. You're just
which one was that? What?
A funny thing happened on the way to the moon. He says that Apollo 12 was blown up because everybody was getting bored of moon landings. No, Apollo 13 was blown up because everybody was getting bored of moon landings. It was just like, he just says that. What are you talking about, bro?
So I came across this video, right? And I thought it was hilarious. But there's not really much to say about it. We just got to watch it. We'll watch it while you fucking do that shit.
Okay.
It had me giggling quite a bit. Need the ad. You don't get free promotion on our shit.
No.
Get out.
So they're already waiting out here. They hear noises coming from the fucking roof. Fucking doors opens.
It's so crazy to have your gun out pointed at a guy climbing out of a roof. What is he gonna do? Drop out with fucking a rocket launcher?
With an assault rifle, just John Wicking at you, you know?
You know, he saw that when he was going to the ATM one day.
Drops a backpack. He thinks he's being sneaky right now, and they're just waiting for him. Like, he thinks he's being fucking covert.
Oh my god.
Get out. Get out.
Oh man.
Hand behind your back.
How's he gonna get out with his hands behind him?
Yeah, I think you guys got to help him a little bit here. Oh shit. Like, I feel a little bad for laughing because I don't know this guy's story, but holy fuck, was that hilarious?
But holy shit, yeah.
Like,
Stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News.
That was wild.
yeah, I saw that. I was like, okay, I have to show this on the podcast.
I wonder why he thought going out of the window, out of the roof was a good idea.
I don't know. Like,
How do you get in? How do you get in?
Right? It seems like he climbed through a vent or something. Like,
Yeah, there's
like
got to be like a whole story.
He thought
there.
he probably was trying to do something he saw in a movie or something like that. You know what I mean? He was trying to do some movie shit. He thought that would be the better way than just like running out the door.
Do you think the backpack had anything in it?
I mean, who knows what was
Do you
in
think
it?
he actually robbed anybody, or do
it
you think
didn't
he
look
went up
very
there with
bulky.
burglar tools and just left?
I mean, just you can't really tell in the video, obviously, but it didn't look like it was stuffed. Like, it just looked like a normal backpack with like just normal
He
amounts.
probably
of
had like
stuff in it.
a hacksaw in there and a
Yeah, you're probably right. He probably had like
torch.
tools and shit. Probably went in there. Like, I don't know the story, so that
I was
maybe
like, shit, this doesn't go anywhere.
we might be way off. But
No, that's the point. It's a comedy podcast. We're supposed to be wrong about news stories.
it might be interesting to follow up on this and see what actually happened here, because
Yeah.
like, I want to know now. Like,
Yeah.
what did he actually
That
get
would be good.
anything?
I'm surprised that played without problem.
Right? Yeah, it's pretty surprising.
Yeah, I think ultimately that was a pretty bad burglary.
Yeah, pretty awful execution. Not even execution because he didn't pull anything off. Pretty awful attempt.
Yeah.
At a burglary.
But I do wonder if somebody has ever robbed a bank from the ceiling.
I mean, maybe he heard a story from somebody who's actually done it.
No, I think he just uses the ATM and he saw that up there. And he was like, I could probably.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how he got in there. I saw him get out, but I don't know how he got in.
This is the story we want to know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's body cam footage of that part. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten in the first place. But.
Speaking of getting in
the
first, I don't think that's a good segue. So last week I released a YouTube video, and that YouTube video was then listened to by Bradley, and we're going to talk about it.
It was listened to by Bradley, which is myself.
So the video was about an argument I had with a libertarian on YouTube about masks originally, but then he started arguing with somebody else over seatbelts, and he's against seatbelt laws. So I made a whole essay about seatbelts.
What I gathered from the video too, the whole seatbelt thing was brought up as an example, as like a metaphor for masks, but then it turned into an actual debate about seatbelts. Am I correct?
Yeah, because I didn't want to talk about masks. Because masks is like a whole...
Well, it's a highly...
You can't show someone a disease spreading from someone to someone else. You can't be like, here's a video of a disease being spread to somebody.
Well, and even if it does, even if you did, ultimately the whole mask thing comes down to a philosophical question of whether your personal freedom is more important than...
Yeah, exactly. It's the same question.
It's always going to go back to that same question, and it really is just about what you prioritize as a person. You can't really convince somebody otherwise that their priority, you know what I mean? Yeah. If they have their priority in their mind, they know what they think is more important. You can't really convince them otherwise.
Yeah. Ultimately, the argument is security versus freedom. But my argument is that freedom isn't just like a thing where like no people leave you alone, you know. Freedom is like also your capacity to do things, you know. I may be free to drive a car, but I'm not free to go into the doctor's office right now and get healthcare, you know.
And one thing that stood out to me about the video was you started talking about this concept of positive versus negative freedoms. I'd never heard of this before, actually. I've never heard of that. It was interesting because it was something I hadn't really thought of. But you brought up some good points, I think, because when I think of the word freedom, I've always thought of it similar to what conservatives and like libertarians would think. You know, that's what comes to mind when I think of that word, is like personal freedoms and you know, your ability to do things without, as long as you're not harming anyone, without being like punished for it.
Yeah.
Right? And that would be the negative freedoms, right? That's the concept of negative freedom, right? Freedom. But you talk about positive freedoms.
That's right.
Which are things that, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong here, because this again, that was the first time I'd ever heard of it. We all good?
Yeah, my alarm for the camera's never went
on. But from my understanding, positive freedoms are things that we actively do to make life easier for people, right?
Yeah.
So things we as a society actively do rather than things we refrain from doing.
Yeah, it's like being restricted from doing something as opposed to being provided something, you know. Positive freedom is being provided.
So to use the metaphor of being a child in your parents' house, a negative freedom would be your parents allowing you to lock your door and not barging in all the time, stuff like that. A positive freedom is your parents providing food and clothing for you so that you're free to eat and
Yeah, exactly.
all that.
Exactly.
So that was very interesting to me because it's a pretty simple concept, but I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah.
And it kind of it puts into perspective a lot of your ideologies that I never quite understood, I guess.
Mhm.
You put it in a way that I've never heard. But you worded it in a way that just kind of made sense. I was
Yeah.
just listening to it at work. I didn't need a diagram or anything to
Yeah.
get it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So I
Which is
thought that was really
extremely
interesting.
funny because I do have a diagram.
Did you?
At one point in time, yeah. That's during the positive and negative freedoms part. I have a diagram.
Well, I didn't need the diagram. I was just at work listening to that, and I was like, "Huh, that kind of that makes sense." I've never heard of that though.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, like using healthcare as an example, it would be a freedom for people to have free healthcare.
Yeah,
Just be
that's what we would consider it, even colloquially. You know, like
well, we're
It's even
literally
called
talking about
free
free
healthcare,
healthcare. That's
you
literally
know?
the debate. Yeah, but the conservative view on that would be, well, it's not my job to pay for your healthcare. Like I worked for my money. I
Yeah.
don't fucking know you. Why do I need to pay for it? But those people, more often than not, and I'm not going to make a generalization for everybody,
mm,
but most likely, like 90% of those people are going to be perfectly fine with the military budget.
Yeah.
And with funding the police to go out and plant drugs on people. You know what I mean?
100% of the time, 100% of the time, they're going to be using, you know, the roads for their businesses. They're going to be using fucking, if they're in a big city, they're going to be using public transport. They're going to be using fucking, it's another thing. They're going to be using crypto, probably. They're probably crypto guys. And I mean, crypto's very much, no, I guess that's a negative freedom. What's a good positive freedom that they're interested in? I mentioned guns. No, guns was a negative freedom. What's a good? I mentioned a few that are in the thing, but there are some positive freedoms that even they're interested in. A good one would be fucking tax breaks, like business deductions is a pretty cool positive freedom. You know, you're allowed to pay less taxes if you've contributed your income to a business that is meant to, you know, push the economy and everything. You're rewarded for that, and you're given you're given more access. You're given a freedom, you know.
Yeah. So I think like what I was getting at is it put into perspective to me what the leftist view on freedom is, because I never quite understood that.
Yeah.
It's something I never really heard explained like that. Because again, I always I was raised by Republicans. You got to understand that, you know what I mean?
And so
when
freedom is very like
it's
like almost a right wing word. Like
it is. I mean, from my understanding and my upbringing of it, that's how I always interpreted that word. It meant personal freedoms. It meant when I thought of a free country, I thought of, I mean, the examples you even hear, they came here so that they wouldn't be persecuted for their religion and stuff like that. That's what I always thought of as freedom. Yeah, so I never really thought of. So when like conservatives and like libertarians would argue that like, well, it's not free for me to pay for your health care. That made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I always noticed in the back of my mind is that those people are perfectly fine with taxes going to other things that are not benefiting anyone.
Yeah. And I think the thing that really convinced me like is the fact that, you know, no business person would function without like the society that they're using to do things. You know, like a successful business doesn't work without roads, you know, period. And when you use those roads, you're using something that people have paid for with their taxes. Now, those people that paid for that road might not have benefited from it themselves, but you did. It's like the definition of like paying it forward, and it's for your society.
And that was a point you brought up on our first episode, I believe. I mentioned an argument I had with my cousin back in the day when I said that in a free country, like if you're a racist, you should be allowed to be racist on your own like property and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that turned into just an argument of like him accusing me of being a racist. But you kind of kept your mouth shut at the time and just kind of let us argue about it. But when I mentioned it on our first episode of this podcast, you brought up that point that, well, if you're opening your business up on public roads built by people who are black and Mexican and Asian and,
exactly.
And that is a really good point.
Yeah.
And that, if I heard that back then, that probably would have shut me up instead of just saying, well, you're fucking racist for saying that.
Exactly.
Again, this is why actually like arguing logically with people, like just say why they're wrong. Don't just tell them they're stupid because then they're going to double down on what they're saying.
Yeah.
Like that's basic psychology, really. Anybody's going to do that if you just start attacking them.
Yeah. One person was ever condescending to me as a response when I was I guess two people were, but one person was like pretty directly condescending to me back when I was a conspiracy theorist, because I got it in my head that there might be a mystery behind horses, and this dude heard me talking about it. He was just like, we fucking know everything about horses. We know everything.
What do you mean a
horses.
Mystery behind horses?
Well,
like where they came from or what?
Yeah, I was thinking like
like historically?
Yeah, I was
like
thinking,
what continent they came from or what?
Like I was like, oh, how did the natives also have horses? Did they have like mysterious North American horse? No. And he got really mad at me.
I didn't think that was a conspiracy thing. I thought that was like actual history that we didn't quite know exactly where that started.
No, the Spanish brought them during the conquista, whatever.
So horses were originally from Europe only.
Yeah.
Well, and they would have been in Asia too then, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole like Eurasian continent?
Yeah, they're from the Eurasian steppes. It's pretty cool that you called that. Yeah, you called it.
Well, yeah, because I mean it's the same landmass, so it wouldn't make sense for them to...
and that's why the Mongols are a good example, but like a lot of Eurasian steppe people are horse people. Like they're obsessed with horses, and it's part of their culture.
Zebras?
Zebras are like African monsters. They
African monsters.
Yeah.
Are they horses?
They're ruthless. They're not horses. They're kind of like horses.
Cousins of horses.
Yeah, but I don't think they're like this closely related. I think they're like more like I don't know. Maybe. I don't know much about zebras. I know a lot about horses.
All I know is zebras look exactly like horses, except they're probably a little smaller than a lot of horses.
No, they're way
or are they big? I don't know how big they are.
They're smaller in stature a lot of the time, but they're like way stronger than a horse because they're like wild animals. Like they have like wild animal strength. And
a lot of horses are wild animals. What do you mean?
I know, but like horses are most like widely domesticated. It's like horses are like the most influenced animal from people in history. There aren't
more
really
than dogs.
Yeah, there aren't really horses that are wild. Like
I feel like there are more wild horses than dogs.
In America, every wild horse here was owned originally. They're from horses that were owned by people that were brought here and escaped one day. That's why all wild horses here were originally domesticated.
Okay.
So they're just like a domesticated type of animal.
But wouldn't that apply to dogs too? Like all wild dogs are just stray dogs,
We haven't been fucking
right?
with dogs as long. Like about, I think like half the time we've been fucking with dogs. Because dogs are a little bit harder to,
Well, from my understanding, the history of dogs actually is not very well understood, because I actually watched a documentary about this, how the Native Americans had a bunch of dogs here.
Yeah.
And when the Europeans came here,
Chihuahuas are native to South America.
Yeah. But yeah, so we know some of them, right? But I guess when the Europeans came here, they brought their dogs, and obviously they interbred with the dogs that were here, and they killed off a lot of the dogs that were here. And so there are a lot of dog species that we don't know the actual origin of. That, I mean, I don't know how legitimate all of that is. I just remember seeing like a documentary about it, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of documentaries like to pose a question and never answer it. So I wouldn't doubt if it was something like that. But we don't know this, but could we know this?
But the whole documentary was basically explaining why we don't know.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was saying like what I just said, like, you know.
Yeah, I know. From the history of dogs, I've learned is that from what we know is like dogs were just the first to cuddle up to us for food, you know, before cats did, because cats were like the next big animal to be like, we want your food. But it was because of grain mills. We hadn't invented grain mills, and it didn't attract cats, and that's why there's a space between having cats and having dogs, because with dogs it's like individual ownership. And that's how eventually we domesticated them. But
yeah, with cats, it was more community ownership.
Yeah,
because the cats would just stick around.
Oh yeah, because we would have these big things of food, and mice would come to try to eat the food, and so cats would show up to eat the mice, and we'd like pet them and shit. And then
it was basically like the cats on Maggie's farm when we worked there.
Yeah,
it was like that.
Yeah,
they just lived
mousers,
there.
You know. But that's like how we've always used them. And then there was like a pretty extensive breeding program in like Egypt that like pushed their genes pretty fucking quickly forward. And that's like why that's the best reason as to why like cats like have any type of this sort of special development where they're as domesticated as they are now is because the Egyptians put in some fucking work. Like they bred cats for the like a whole goddess. There were temples for the goddess, and they would just breed cats. Probably reeked like piss.
So did they really like worship cats, or is that more of like a misnomer?
It was a specific religion in Egypt. They worshipped a goddess who was like a cat lady.
Because I could see people like 1,000 years from now thinking we worship dogs. You know what I mean?
No, but they were like the only thing allowed in temples besides priests and everything, and we know that. So like,
so they had like high esteem.
Yeah, it was like
religiously then.
Yeah, okay. It was like the cats would come into the temples and the priests would pet them, and that was like a religious act.
It makes me love cats even more, man. I love cats, and the history behind cats is even more interesting.
That's wild.
I've wanted to watch some documentaries. I've seen that there are some on Netflix, but haven't got around to it.
Yeah, I haven't. I have a whole thick book about cats. Yeah. This big. It's the only big book about cats on the internet because the rest are like coffee table books. And I would hope to make a nice video about that one day.
Interesting animals.
Yeah, they are. And it's interesting how we were like using them for a whole different purpose. You know, as the purpose came up, we developed the relationships with the animals, which is, I wonder, like, if like tropical birds and stuff, if we developed those relationships, like through, like, of course, like through natives probably showed people who came there, oh yeah, we have these birds that we domesticated, and then the birds were probably exported, right? That's probably a pretty safe assumption.
Yeah,
because it's. I mean,
I'd say so.
They probably gave birds guava. I've never had a guava. Have you?
I don't think I have. I've had like guava juice and stuff, but I don't think I've ever had just like a guava.
Never seen the fruit.
What the fuck is it?
No.
Like, weird.
Yeah. I want to do something funny next. Speaking of funny things and doing them,
so was that all we had to say about your video?
I think it petered off pretty well. Okay. I think we're done talking about it.
I think that was basically the big takeaway for me. It wasn't really about the debate that you were actually talking about. For me, it was like the whole like concept of freedoms that you brought up for me,
which is the biggest. That was the biggest pressure point when he said, because I felt like him saying that was like directed at me, like I don't like freedom. And love freedom,
okay, so I guess we'll mention that. So in the video, he says that. Well, in the video, you mentioned that he says that you must hate freedom.
Yeah, he shares a meme that says that if COVID determined that you hate freedom or something like that, and then he said that you hate freedom if you support any type of laws that restrict someone's freedom over someone else's safety. And did you find the Benjamin Franklin part interesting?
I don't quite remember. I remember something about that. I don't remember
So
what
the
it was.
Benjamin Franklin, like, those who would sacrifice safety for liberty deserve neither quote that you hear a lot in like a lot of
Oh yeah.
circles.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a complete bullshit. It's like complete bullshit.
You were saying that it was taken out of context.
Yeah, it was like almost completely flipped around. Not only taken out of context, but completely.
Because
flipped
I've
around.
seen that quote, and I always
Yeah.
thought it made a lot of sense. That like, okay, I mean, yeah, that makes sense that he would say that, and
Yeah.
it was something that I agreed with when I heard it.
Yeah, and he was just actually siding against rich landowners for the government. You know, he was mad that they didn't want to pay taxes and they wanted to kill Native Americans. You know, they had a lot of Native Americans to kill and not enough taxes. And Ben Franklin was like, we got to get those. I'm done talking about it. I'm done talking about the movie. Let's
Okay.
do the gaming.
That was the main takeaway for me, though, was the positive versus negative
Yeah.
freedoms, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I have a whole chart. Watch the video. There's a whole chart that shows the freedoms. I have little logos of all the parties going next to the freedoms as I list them.
And I'll look back at that, but again, I didn't need a chart, so
Yeah.
like that's a compliment to the way you explained it,
Yeah, thank
because
you.
it made sense to me just listening to it.
Yeah, because I wrote it so you can understand it as a written piece, and then I
Right.
designed the video around it, you know.
Yeah.
Because I like to listen to stuff too.
So I've been seeing this meme being passed around by conservatives and right-leaning people.
You're shaking the cameras.
Oh, my bad. I have a bad habit of leaning on the table.
Yeah. We got the armrests.
Yeah. But they're
I rub my leg hair.
they're over
That's
here.
what I'm doing.
Yeah. So this meme is attempting to demonstrate how the LGBT community is indoctrinating children.
Okay.
Right. Now, we'll just look at this meme and tell me what you notice right away, other than what the implication is. Just what look at the image.
Yeah, it's very much image that was generated with some type of AI image.
Yeah,
generated.
very clearly AI generated.
Yeah.
But nobody mentions that. Nobody in the comments, nothing. Everybody's just like, yeah, fucking, just agreeing with it. And I'm like, I commented on one of the people who posted it. I was like,
This is fake.
well, I was like, you're just going to shamelessly post obviously AI generated images and pass them off as
I'm
real?
pretty sure you could save that and actually put it in the document too.
Yeah,
So,
probably.
Yeah.
The image?
Yeah, I think you can. But that is fucked up.
Yeah.
So what did they say?
So-
What did you say?
Nothing.
What did you say?
Well, I said, so you're just going to shamelessly post AI generated images and pass them off as real? And I didn't get
Just
any
nothing.
response. People kept commenting on it and as if it was real, but nobody addressed my comment. And
Strange.
This is the kind of shit that pisses me off, because besides the obvious bigotry here being presented,
Yeah.
the horrible implication
Yeah.
of this meme.
So to fully describe the meme, for the audio listeners, who are probably loving the podcast,
Yeah.
there is a picture of a bunch of students who appear to be waving around Nazi flags.
So the top image is a black and white photo
Yeah.
of, from like the
Yeah.
1940s of children
waving around,
hanging out
like,
the window of a train, it looks like,
yeah.
waving Nazi flags. Very happy, smiling.
Yeah. And then on the bottom here, let's
I gotta.
oh, you don't have auto rotate. I guess we could just put it right side up right there.
Yeah. It's not really a wide image anyway.
Okay, and then yeah, so they look all happy, they're smiling. It's like Nazi propaganda. And then at the bottom half of the photo is a very similar photo, except it's children in a classroom, appear to be like around the ages of fucking 2 to 7.
They're like kindergartners or first graders.
Well, they're like
tops.
kindergartners, first graders, and toddlers. Like this
Yeah.
kid is not the same age as
Right.
that kid.
Yeah, definitely.
And
not.
the reason why is because this image is obviously AI generated. The flags are like blending into kids.
Yeah, that flag is blending into the wall right there.
Yeah, and
What the fuck is going on all right here?
yeah, there's a whole segment that's literal, just like it's
Just
AI
nonsense.
nonsense that happens. You know, like space that's unoccupied by real like things because they
like-
don't understand how to complete an image on the other side of an image in the foreground.
Yeah.
And which I mean, once AI figures out layering, these motherfuckers will be unstoppable. But yeah,
and
it's very fake. And yeah, like there's some of these flags, they're all supposed to be the progress flag, which if nobody's ever seen the progress flag, it is the one everybody is the most offended by. And that should be enough for you to figure it out. And yeah, the shirts don't make any sense.
that's supposed to be like a Disney shirt, obviously. It's like Mickey
Yeah.
Mouse ears, but it's obviously
It's
not
like a
Mickey
heart
Mouse.
and Mickey Mouse.
Yeah,
and
like-
it says
yeah.
LO. Like it's supposed to say love, and they just fucked it up. One
that
shirt,
just says mode on it.
yeah, one shirt says mode, and it just like disappears. One girl looks like she's part dog in her shirt. Like her shirt is just like, what is that?
And look at this ghost kid back here. And look at this ghost girl behind this flag. They look like ghosts.
Yeah, they're like blended in with
They're
desks
scary.
in between frames of flags. It's
obviously fake, but nobody commenting on it and posting it wants to address that. If they posted this and said that it was an AI generated image that is supposed to represent what they're saying, that would be one thing. But they're
Yeah.
obviously trying to pass it off as real, and everybody just goes with it. And it's obviously fake. Imagine when this shit actually looks real. And people can just make whatever kind of propaganda they want. They can make an image of children with like Jeffrey Epstein t-shirts on or something
Yeah.
like that in
and
a
it's just like
kindergarten.
wearing like I voted Democrat stickers. and-
Yeah. And just obvious political propaganda that is just AI generated. And
yeah.
now it's
That's
obvious.
like a half a kid. That's like a half a kid right there. Right there.
Yeah.
That's a half a kid.
yeah.
They're missing the long way half of their body.
Yeah.
They have the right side of their body and not the left side of their body. It's literally like a half of a kid floating in space.
And
Oh,
people just roll with this. You know what I mean? Like imagine when it actually looks real. The kind of shit that the news will show. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, because people can just make up whatever now and have physical evidence to back it up.
Yeah, it looks so believable at the edges.
At a glance, at certain parts, yeah. Like back here, I mean, that looks like a real classroom with like that person looks tiny, but other than that,
Right? I didn't think about that. I thought it looks like a teacher walking down a hallway.
yeah, but they look
They're like-
proportioned like an adult, but they're too tiny. They're like
Yeah,
a little person.
They're like a third size.
They're like a little elf or something.
This is fucking twisted.
Yeah, it's fucked up, dude. Like this is beyond fucked up. And the funny thing is, half the people commenting on this are more supporting the Nazi part too. They're like, "Yeah, the kids on top look happy." I saw that comment so many times. I'm like, they're like, "Look how much happier the kids on top look than the ones on the bottom."
Oh my god. Oh my god.
That's insane.
Doomed. We're doomed.
Yeah, this is
AI is gonna kill us, and we're just gonna make fun of it every episode until it does.
yeah. It's honestly scary because like all jokes aside, like all Terminator bullshit aside,
yeah.
this is the kind of shit that will be the downfall of humanity. Straight the fuck
Being
up.
able to fake propaganda.
AI
like this.
is going to turn humans against each other in a way that we have never seen.
This and a combination of this and just like sectioning people off from each other, and then just like keeping them uneducated.
Yeah.
If you're uneducated and you're fed this type of propaganda, you're gonna be like, the kids on the top look happy. You're not even gonna have the media literacy to understand what they're trying to say in the meme itself. You're gonna be like, so prone to Nazi propaganda that you're fucking there, buddy. Like,
that's fun. Yeah, that's the funny part about the people saying that is that's not even what the meme is trying to say. The meme isn't trying to say that this is the good thing.
Yeah, they're so illiterate that they're just straight up just Nazis. Like just one bit of propaganda, just boom. Yeah, those kids look sad. Those AI generated children look sad, probably because they can't properly express themselves because they're not real.
Like this girl's face looks like it was pasted on. You know what I mean? And look how long her head is this way for some reason. It looks weird. Like this is obviously fake, just by like the way the face is and everything.
No, I think that's real. Oh.
No.
You think that's a
Look at the
different
hands.
faked image?
Look at the hands right there. Yeah, this is AI
I think
generated.
I could do that. Oh, there seems to be an extra finger. Huh?
Yeah, no, and even the way they line up, and it just looks like AI.
So you think both of
garble,
them are
you
fake?
know?
Why would they fake the first one? Or you don't think that?
Well, I think they made an AI generated image of German children waving swastika flags, and then they made another AI generated image of like kindergarten students waving
LGBTQ flags.
Yeah, and then they merged them and made it into this meme. That's what I think they did. I don't know for sure, but I think this is obviously fake. If you look at
his hand right there.
Yeah.
That kind of gives it away from me.
The way they line the layering doesn't look right.
Yeah,
look at
you're
that.
so right.
Yeah, it's
You're
AI
so
generated.
right.
Yeah. See, that one is not as obvious as this, but the more you look at it,
it's less like problematic to have kids wave, because I mean the Nazis did make kids do Nazi
and that's
shit.
why you're like, I don't know if that's because I mean it's a believable picture.
Yeah, it's not
that
like
one.
They probably didn't have to fake that. They were just like, I need this exactly. You know.
Yeah. They probably could have found a picture just like it. That's a good point.
Or at least of
weird.
like kids with swastikas, you know, maybe not waving swastika flags, but they probably had to make it flags to make their flag point effectively, because their whole point is the LGBTQ flag is like a swastika flag.
Yeah.
In some type of way.
But I don't know how you spread this bullshit around and think you're on the right side of history.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean?
It's like lying for God, or either that, or
it's not lying for God. Like, well, I mean, the people who hosting it, or they say that's what they're doing. Well, I mean, they don't say they're lying for God. They say it's for God.
Yeah.
What they're doing is for God.
Yeah.
But
you're saying
obviously not.
If there is a God, that's not what they're actually doing. They're charlatans. But I think that's what the action is. I think they're. I think a lot of them, the ones that aren't complete like wretched monsters, are lying for God because they think they're on the right side, even though all the information's piled against them. So they're like, oh, if I lie, that's actually a virtue, as long as it brings people to the light, you know.
Which is nonsense, because that's breaking one of the main fucking that's one of the first commandments is do not tell lies.
I mean, don't kill your neighbor, and they did a whole fucking crusades a whole bunch of times, not just once. They did as many crusades as they did Apollo missions, and Nazis will lie about both.
It's just insane, man.
I wonder if they're gonna like it. Yeah, and it's interesting. Because there's also a segment that are like being intentionally used to spread like destabilizing propaganda, because the US and Russia are in a new Cold War, and they don't want to like explicitly say they are, but I mean it's pretty fucking obvious. Like we're both trying to affect each other's politics. Now, whether or not it's neoliberalism or fascism, I mean, it's probably not really great for either like for us, like, but I would prefer neoliberalism to fascism, like Russia. But I mean, it's been proven that they have people that they pay in America to spread propaganda that's meant to destabilize shit. And that's what a lot of like bigger conspiracy media shills are people who like are directly connected to RT and what's that other one? Putnik. Is that it? Something like that.
I'm not familiar with that.
But there's like
I know RT.
It's associated with RT, and they claim that they don't take directions directly from the Russian government, but they very commonly just toe the Russian government's exact line on everything, just coincidentally. Even like things like the Ukraine invasion, Russia was saying they weren't going to do it until the day they did it, even though they were like bringing troops to the border and everybody was talking about it, and it was like a big fucking thing. Right? Putin comes out and he's just like, "We're not doing this. We're just hanging out, guys. I wish I knew. We are not." How do Russian people talk?
Don't ask me about accents, man.
Should I not do this? Is it culturally insensitive?
I don't have a problem with it. I'm just not good at accents.
Okay. This is this is Putin. I'm not gonna do it. Yeah. You know, he agreed with J.K. Rowling on trans people in one of his Ukraine war speeches.
It's pretty.
That's how aligned the fascists are on the most arbitrary bullshit. They're like, he's like, I recognize you, J.K. Rowling. You're hating on trans people. I'm invading countries for no reason but to get back the fatherland. We are the same. He did that. Like, I saw it when he did it live, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
I mean, is he wrong though?
Well, yeah, he is on the same side.
Exactly. I mean, it's not wrong about that.
Yeah, he seems to be more aware of it than J.K. Rowling is, because she seems to be friends with a lot of Nazis, but either doesn't understand that or is unaware of what a Nazi is, what a fascist is.
I don't know much about J.K. Rowling, so I can't really speak on that. I just know
she has a friend named Posey Parker who's like a literal neo-Nazi, and they're like pretty close.
I just know she said things that offended trans people. That's all I really know about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
then Posey Parker is like she's like an actual Nazi. Like, she had like a Nazi profile pic, and J.K. Rowling defended her and said she was chill and a feminist. So I think you pretty much determined J.K. Rowling is probably anti-Semitic from the Harry Potter stuff, but also her friends aren't great.
Yeah. I definitely. Playing Hogwarts Legacy, I could definitely see the metaphor there, but I kept on feeling bad for seeing it in the first place. You know what I mean? I was like, am I the racist asshole for even seeing that in the first place? So like, I feel like it kind of gaslights you at the same time as it toes the line. You know what I mean?
If you were Jewish, you would recognize all those things without having to like understand that as a racist. You would recognize it as anti-Jewish tropes. Like, it's not just like woke tards and SJW like limp dick soy simps saying this, It's people who like have dealt with Nazis saying, "Hey, this is like actual Nazi shit,"
Yeah.
And like of course J.K. Rowling is a very watered down version. And I'm not saying like Hogwarts Legacy is a Nazi game, but there's a lot
of the lore included definitely seems
there's
analogous.
It's literally just putting wallpaper on anti-Jewish myths from a long time, like from long time in history. You know, they've been around, and just attaching them to those and making a fantasy world out of it. You know, like it's not that she's like explicitly saying, oh, the Jews are bad. She's saying, I'm going to take everything that they say about the Jews and make it a fun mystical character, you know, which is pretty awful, you know, but it's not the same thing as like an actual Nazi. And I will say that, like,
well, it's like if you took all of the negative black stereotypes and made a caricature character out of it.
It was just like, this isn't racist. It's a fantasy world.
Yeah. But it's just a black guy that goes around robbing people and like,
yeah. And it's just like, no, his race, he's draconian. He likes to, I don't even want to say, I don't even want to continue the bit. Everybody gets the bit.
Everybody understands where we're going with this. They understand the analogy.
Yeah, they get the bit. We should move on to the true crime thing.
Yeah, we're probably running pretty fucking.
We're running a little late.
Oh shit! Yeah, we're at 3 hours now, so we got to make this pretty quick.
Yeah. So let's talk about your true crime thing.
So
we'll end it on something dumb. We're not going to watch the alien thing tonight.
No, but
we'll do your true crime thing for the last segment again, and then we'll just try to give the show a better ending. We'll do the lion thing.
Okay.
Set up this. I'll set up the lion thing while you're setting up this bit. Explain why you're doing it.
Okay. Have you heard of? Is this name familiar to you at all? Have you heard this name in the media? Taylor Shabusiness. Strange name.
No.
Interesting last name, I must say. Shabusiness. Ain't your business. Yeah. Right? No, fuck. I don't even know a whole lot of details on this, honestly. Most of the research I did was like right before you came over. This is another one of those like gut-wrenching ones. But like
that's great.
There's your alarm.
Oh, I gotta check the cameras.
Yep.
They're doing good. They're holding up.
Dope. So Taylor Shabusiness, she had a boyfriend named Shad Therion. I might be butchering that. My bad if I am. So, from my understanding, her.
Really don't have batteries, huh?
What kind of batteries?
Keep going.
So, from my understanding, her story is that they were doing some like kinky, like BDSM type stuff, right?
Okay.
She had a dog collar on him, and she was like choking him with it.
Okay.
I guess she like blacked out.
She blacked out?
That's what she says.
Strange.
She like blacked out, and like strangled him to death.
Okay.
But then she proceeds to dismember his body.
Oh no.
Fornicate with it. God knows what else. I don't know.
She had sex with the body?
Yeah. I don't even know how.
It's a lie. I mean,
I don't
that's
like.
not a lie, but she lied. She lied in the first place. She couldn't possibly accidentally killed him. She's like a murderer. She like murdered a dude?
Well, no, she definitely murdered him. Then she dismembered his body, cut it up into pieces, made love to it, and then the dude's mom found his head in a bucket. That's how she found out her son was dead.
Where did she dispose of it? At his house in a bucket? Just at his house?
Yeah. His mom found his head just chilling in a fucking bucket with like a towel on it. So when the police get there, you know, they search the house. They found most of his body parts. They said his head and his penis were in the bucket, and then he had other body parts in like totes and bags and shit around the house. Just around the house, I guess. But he had a
So
couple.
we're talking like full mental break here.
We're talking like Jeffrey Dahmer type stuff here.
Well, it's
like-
just one person.
Yeah, but
So that's
like,
like she fucking just.
well, this is like Jeffrey Dahmer if he was stupid enough to get caught the first time.
I don't know. I think that's
Like-
crazier more than stupid.
Well, but no, well, I mean, we'll get to
Okay.
we'll get to it. But like, so they were missing, I guess, I think a couple limbs or something. They didn't find right away. Eventually, they found them on the other side of town in a crock pot box or something like that. Fucking weird. But obviously they arrest this woman.
Yeah.
But like in her interrogation, I didn't link it. You can watch it. I don't want to play
We
it.
can just
We're
talk
already,
about it.
Yeah, we're already running out of time
Yeah.
anyway. But in her interrogation, she's like, it's another one of those few that I've seen where she's just talking like matter of factly about it, kind of just like describing what she did. Doesn't really seem to have any
Yeah.
emotion. She like laughs a couple times, like giggles at some things, and like, jeez, that was loud as
Yeah.
fuck.
Oh, yeah, that's not good. Damn it, Erica.
She's like, where the fuck you at?
Yeah. She knows I'm recording a podcast. Okay.
But yeah, no, so like again, I don't know too many details on this,
Yeah,
but
but how'd the interview go?
like from what I saw, I didn't watch the full thing, but just from what I saw, she's like acting very like nonchalant about it and like actually like laughing and giggling at times. She attacked her fucking attorney in court for some reason. I saw a video of that. She just straight up attacks her own attorney. I don't know why. I don't know the story on that, but there's a video of that. I can link that too.
Why? Maybe she's trying to.
That might be an attempt at like,
Yeah, maybe
insanity
from
plea
the
or something.
get go, it's been a crazy plea. Maybe from the get go, once she accidentally killed him, she thought if I can prove that I'm crazy, then I won't get in trouble for this.
It's a good point because what the fuck?
Yeah, because otherwise, what the fuck?
Yeah, because otherwise what
it's
the
like
fuck?
I'm watching out for people.
Because it's like that's something Jeffrey Dahmer would do, except he would have the body parts in his house. He wouldn't leave it at the victim's house. And this was her boyfriend. This wasn't a stranger. You know what I mean? This wasn't like one of Jeffrey Dahmer's like one night stands that he fucking murdered somebody. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like that. It was her fucking boyfriend.
Yeah.
They already had a relationship. She was known to be the last person to be with him. And then his mom finds his head in a fucking bucket.
Yeah. That's
Like-
so wild.
It's fucking wild. Like,
That's so wild. At least that only like happens once, you know?
what do you mean?
That one specific thing can only happen once. It's like one of those things. So it's like the last story you told me. It's so terrible, right? That it can only happen once. Something like it can happen again, right? Something like that can happen. But that one specific thing, I'm so glad it only happened once to those people and not to me. So let's shoot this lion. I brought the lion. We're going to shoot it with the gun. We're going to see who wins. We're going to try to win the game.
That's how we're ending that?
Yeah. Here. I'm gonna put it right here. I'll bring this camera down. I'll turn the other camera to face you. You're gonna try to kill this lion. We're gonna see who gets the higher score. Oh, there's your phone.
Yeah, that would be mine. Wait, so what the fuck are we doing?
You're gonna shoot the lion. Don't break anything. I'm not. You can go around the other side, right? Yeah, we can move our mics to where they're still facing us. Okay. That's the end.
We didn't do any plugs.
Oh, okay. I still have one camera going. I can get this camera going. We didn't record anything. That's not the end. We're gonna do plugs.
We'll have to do another fake out this episode too.
I should have done plugs before the line thing.
Yeah, probably. That would have been a better
Start
way
with your
to
plugs. The camera's on.
end this. I'll just keep the line here. Fuck it. The lion's joining me for the plugs. All right. The name's B Deli. B-Delley. Doesn't mean anything at all. I wouldn't recommend thinking about it at all. You can find me on YouTube under that name, and at B Deli Official is the handle. No comma, no periods, no uppercase. Not sure that matters anyway. Also the same with Instagram, at B Deli Official. You can find me on TikTok too. I don't really post there. Facebook, I don't really post there much either. But I'm there. So yeah.
Yeah. And my name is Maliki. I have a YouTube channel. It's Maliki. I have a music channel. It's Maliki Beats. We have a show. It's called The Smoke Up.
That would be this show.
It's on YouTube and Spotify. If you look it up, it's spelled THESMOKEUP.
In case you didn't know how to spell those words.
And that's a wrap. Oh. Things hard to shoot. Bow. I wonder if that came out cool. Probably not.
No. Probably just looked like blurred nonsense.
Smoke